Chapter 1818. Listening to their conversation, Yun Jian and Si Yi's eyes glinted as they stood in the dark. He Mingyu, Fu Axian, and Gu Liuli covered their mouths tightly and widened their eyes. They forced themselves not to make a sound as they watched the scene unfold before them. Thankfully, the children who were still in primary school didn't follow them. Old woman Lu didn't follow them either, so they didn't make a sound. The reason why He Mingyu and the others were frightened was because the two men standing in front of them were holding two pistols in their hands. Listening to the conversation between the two of them, it was clear that the guns in their hands were definitely real. Just as they finished their conversation, a tall and sturdy figure suddenly darted out from the bushes. The two men were tall and thin. With their backs facing Yun Jian, Si Yi, and the rest, one of them shouted at the tall and sturdy figure, "Lu Hua, how is it? Is boss here?" "No," boss said, the information was wrong. "There's no treasure in this godforsaken place behind Jinda village. Let's hurry up and leave. It's all AF * King Bluff." The man named Lu Hua waved at the two tall and thin men. His movements were very light and quiet, but Yun Jian, Si Yi, and the rest, who were hiding in the dark, heard him clearly. Hearing that the information was wrong, the two tall and thin men cursed in a low voice and left. It was as if the scene before them was a joke. It was only after the three men were far away that Yun Jian and her friend started to head back. Are the guns in their hands real guns? He Mingyu trembled for a while before he managed to ask the question he wanted to ask. When they saw Yun Jian and Si Yi walking towards them, He Mingyu and the rest followed them without a second thought. He Mingyu followed them with the intention of figuring out what Yun Jian was up to. However, on the way back, she was trembling all over and couldn't stop asking in a trembling voice. "If you want to know whether it's real or not, you can just chase after them and ask them." Yun Jian smiled coldly. If Yun Jian had said this before, He Mingyu would probably have retorted. However, He Mingyu was too afraid to say a word now. When they returned to the back of the mountain where they hunted birds, although He Mingyu and the rest were afraid, they didn't mention a word about what had just happened. Fortunately, those who went were around Yun Jian's age. Because they had seen an extremely terrifying scene, no one mentioned what had just happened. When they returned to the back of the mountain, they didn't have the mood to continue hunting birds with their slingshots. They all found an excuse to go home. When it was past 6 in the evening, the sun was about to set and the afterglow of the sky was slowly blooming. Dinner had yet to be served. He Qing did not make dinner in time either. After he came back from outside, he hurriedly called Yun Jian, Si Yi, Chen Xinyi, and Zhang Xiaofeng into the house. "Xinyi, I've called. Your family's car will be here to take you back to Longmen City later," He Qing said, looking flustered. "Go home. Grandpa, we've just arrived yesterday. Why do we have to go back?" Chen Xinyi was shocked and confused. He Qing kept quiet for 2 seconds before he suddenly glanced at Yun Jian and Si Yi. Finally, as if he had made a decision, he walked to the door and looked around. Seeing that there was no one there, he closed the door and turned to speak to everyone sternly. He looked at Yun Jian and Si Yi first. "Xinyi has told me before that one of you is her best friend and the other is her best friend's man. It's believable. I won't keep this a secret from all of you." As he spoke, He Qing looked at the group and sighed. "A lot of foreigners have come to Jinda village recently. I don't know if you guys know that there's a lot of foreigners coming to the back of the mountain recently, saying that they're here to look for treasure." Yun Jian's deep eyes narrowed when she heard that. He Qing's solemn voice continued, "They've been looking for treasure in the back of the mountain but to no avail. Some of them have gone back while some are still unwilling to give up. I heard that a group of people have come recently. They're world-class bigwigs and they even have guns with them. I heard from someone at the village entrance just now that they won't leave until they get their hands on the treasure. They're even going from house to search for the treasure they want." As he spoke, He-Ching hurried to his bed and bent under it to lift up a piece of floorboard under the bed to take out an ancient box. He-Ching went over and shoved the box into Chen-Sini's arms before he told Chen-Sini and the rest anxiously, "Brother, you're here." Chapter 18-19. Grandpa. Then what are you going to do? Chen-Sini had never heard of this before, let alone the fact that her family had an ancestral treasure. She was completely stunned and asked after a moment of silence. He-Ching's words made Yun-Jian blink as well. The fact that He-Ching could say this in front of her and Ce was proof that he trusted her and Ce a lot. Zhang Xiaofeng was equally stunned by He-Ching's words. Ce, who was beside them, acted like he did not hear He-Ching at all. As the leader of an Hun group, what treasure could Ce not have? To Ce, those rare treasures were not as precious as his Shao Jian. His treasure was Shao Jian. Other than that, no one or anything could replace it. "Dong Dong and I will stay here. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Those people don't even know that the treasure is in our house. Anyway, Sini, take it and leave quickly. Your family's car will drive to the village entrance to pick you up later." He-Ching said solemnly. This family heirloom had been with the He family for a long time and had been passed down for many generations. About a year or two ago, someone suddenly spread the news that there was a treasure in the mountain behind Jinda village. The villagers did not know about it, but it was a hot topic outside. There were many people who came to the mountain behind Jinda village to search for the treasure, but to no avail. Basically, they would leave when they did not find the treasure after searching the mountain behind Jinda village. However, the group of people who came these 2 days was said to be sent by an international bigwig. All of them were armed with guns. It was obvious that they were gangsters. When He-Ching was in the village just now, he heard them say that they would not leave until they found the treasure. He-Ching panicked. He quickly called Chen-Sini back, planning to have her leave with the treasure. As they spoke, a car honked at the door. He-Ching got Chen-Sini to hold the antique box tightly and told everyone to pack up and leave. "The car's here. Sini, go back to Longmen City quickly and pass this box to your mom. Don't let your eldest and second uncles know about it." He-Ching reminded Chen-Sini. He-Ching knew very well that his eldest and second sons were greedy. If they knew that there was a treasure in their house, they would sell it for money immediately. As he spoke, He-Ching led Chen-Sini, Yun-Jian, and the others out of the door. However, as soon as he walked out of his house, He-Ching saw a car parked not far away. Beside the car stood a group of ferocious-looking people. This group of fiendish people had guns in their hands. And the leader of this group of fierce-looking people was the man with a tattoo on his chest standing at the very front. Beside him was someone He-Ching was familiar with. "Liang, why are you here?" He-Ching looked at the leader of the group of people in surprise. Beside him stood a person who was about the same age as him and looked very much like him. The person called Liang was He-Ching's younger brother, He Liang. "Brother, what's this thing in your granddaughter's arms? Where are they going?" He Liang's eyes shone when he saw what Chen-Sini was holding. "He Liang, do you know what you're saying?" The menacing men around them were obviously the world-class bigwigs. He-Ching's eyes widened in shock when he heard He Liang's words. "You don't have to call me by my full name, brother. I can hear you," He Liang said to He-Ching in a sarcastic tone. After saying this, He Liang, who had wanted to put on an act just now, immediately revealed his true colors. "Ha, brother. You're so nice to me. Our father was so nice to you when he passed away. He even passed on such a precious thing to you. If it wasn't for my neighbor, old Wang, who overheard the conversation between you and our father, I wouldn't even know that our family had passed on such a treasure. Chapter 1820. He-Ching's old father had already passed away. Before he passed away, he gave the family heirloom to He-Ching and told He-Ching to pass it on. When it came to family heirlooms, some people would think about how to sell it for money. Others would want to pass it on even if they starved to death. Of course, there were very few people who could do the latter. He-Ching was one of them. He-Ching's old father had long seen through his other son, He-Liang's character. That was why He-Ching's old father gave the family heirloom to He-Ching. At this moment, after hearing He-Liang's words, He-Ching suddenly thought of something. His finger trembled as he pointed at the group of ferocious-looking people and said loudly, "Liang, could it be that these people, were you the one who called them here?" His own younger brother had betrayed him. He-Ching didn't know how to describe this feeling. "My brother, don't look as if you were the one who suffered a great loss. When that old man gave you the family heirloom, did he remember that I was his son too?" I don't mind telling you. I was also the one who spread the news about the family heirloom in Jinda village." He-Liang's face made Qin Sini and Zhang Xiaofeng feel nauseous. There was a glint in Yunjian's eyes. Siyi's arm around her waist never loosened. You. He-Liang's words made He-Ching's expression change. He-Ching couldn't believe that his younger brother would betray him like this. He clutched his heart and was so angry that he almost vomited blood. "What are you guys waiting for? Hurry up and snatch the treasure. It's in that girl's arms." He-Liang suddenly said to the leader standing next to him as he pointed at Qin Sini. Next to He-Ching's house was the sports field of Jinda village. Therefore, all the villagers were attracted by the commotion and came to see what was going on. Whether it was the old woman Lu, He Mingyu whom Yun Jian and the others met in the back of the mountain, Gu Lioli, or Fu Axian's group, they all heard the commotion and came over. When they saw the leader standing there with a group of fierce-looking people, and each of them holding a shiny pistol in their hands, these ignorant people in the village all turned pale with fright. "How dare you order me around?" The leader glanced at He-Liang and waved his hand, ordering his men to arrest He-Liang. "What are you doing? Didn't you say that you would share half of the treasure with me?" He-Liang was still in shock when he was pinned down. He only calmed down when the leader's subordinate pointed the gun at his head. "My name is Henry, I'm the younger brother of D country's arms tycoon, Henry Livy. Old man, if you know what's good for you, you'd better hand it over, or else, the leader said as he twirled the pistol in his hand. The scene of He-Liang betraying He-Ching and Henriquez betraying He-Liang made everyone tremble in fear, not daring to utter a single word. Looking at the shiny pistols, He-Ching clenched his fist. He didn't expect that in the end, the one who ruined his family's heirloom was his own brother. "Old man, give it to me. Otherwise, I'll kill you." Henriquez saw that He-Ching didn't take out the treasure, so he grabbed the gun and pointed it at He-Ching's head. "I won't give it to you." Just when everyone thought that He-Ching would not be able to protect his family's heirloom, a beautiful female voice rang out. Yun Jian quietly took the antique box from Qin Sini and held it in her hand. She crossed her arms and looked at Henriquez in front of everyone as she said those words. "What did you say? Give it to me." Henriquez heard Yun Jian's words and angrily pointed the gun at Yun Jian as he roared. The gun was actually pointed at Yun Jian's head. She just provoked Henriquez, who had a gun in his hand. Was she looking for death? The surrounding residents of Jinda village, including Fu Axian, He Mingyu, and the others, all took a deep breath. They were so scared that their faces turned extremely pale. Old woman Lu was so scared that her legs were paralyzed. Just when Henriquez was overbearing, a gunshot sounded. Without giving anyone a chance to react, this shot was aimed at Henrique's wrist that was pointing the gun at Yunjian's head. The bullet flew into Henrique's wrist at a speed that he couldn't react to at all. The nerves in Henrique's wrist were destroyed on the spot. The gun in his hand that was pointing at Yunjian's head fell to the ground unconsciously. No one could see who fired the gun. When everyone looked in the direction of the frightening bullet, they saw a shiny silver gun appear in Siyi's right hand while holding Yunjian's waist. In terms of shooting skills, Siyi was invincible in this world. With a dark expression, Siyi looked at Henriquez without a change in his expression. After he shot Henriquez's wrist in a swift motion that no one knew when he had taken out his gun and shot, a voice so cold that it shocked everyone rang. It was directed at Henriquez. Chapter 1821. The surrounding people were shocked by Siyi's actions. What was even more frightening was that Siyi also had a gun. And all of Henry's subordinates also had guns. Even if everyone knew that Siyi had a gun, they would never have thought that Siyi would do such a thing. Just because Henry pointed his gun at Yunjian, Siyi fired at him. Not to mention Siyi's marksmanship, just his actions alone were enough to show that he was disregarding his own life just to protect Yunjian. There were many girls present, and Siyi was so handsome. When these girls saw this scene, they couldn't help but be tempted. Nowadays, how many boys would really disregard their own lives for the sake of the girl they liked? Just as everyone was thinking this, Henry, who had one of his wrists crippled, held his hand and roared, "You actually dared to shoot at me. Kill him. Kill them for me. After taking the treasures, don't leave a single one alive." Henry's tone was very agitated. It was the kind of furious roar that came from enduring the pain in his wrist. So what if Ce had a gun? He was only one person after all. The Jinda village residents standing in the distance were so frightened that their legs went soft. Henry had obviously suffered all kinds of knife and gun wounds in the past. How could he be ordinary in the black market? Although Henry was in great pain from Ce's attack, he could still endure it. Just as he growled, Henrius held his injured wrist. His eyes darted around, not looking at Yunjian closely just now. Now that he was looking at her delicate and beautiful face, he could see that she was delicate and pretty. She was more perfect than any girl he had ever ked. Henrius' eyes suddenly narrowed, and his lower body swelled. Perhaps because Ce dared to shoot at him and injure him, Henry wanted to take revenge. He pointed at Yunjian and said to his subordinates, "Don't kill this girl. Kill everyone else. Hee. How dare you injure me? I'll king rape your woman in front of the whole village." The person Henry wanted to take revenge on was naturally Ce, who had hurt him. He was the younger brother of the D country's military tycoon, Henry Liwei. How could a brat like him provoke him? Originally, Ce didn't plan to make a move, but after hearing Henrique's words, Ce's eyes flashed with a strong killing intent. Even he himself could not bear to touch his Xiao Jian. "You can prepare to die now." Ce let go of Yunjian's waist and took 2 steps towards Henry. Yunjian blinked. "What did you say?" Henry glared at Ce. However, the moment Henriquez spoke, Ce's tall figure appeared in front of Henriquez like a phantom. He directly passed by Henriquez's subordinates who were protecting him, his speed as fast as a bolt of lightning. Raising his hand, the gun in his hand was pressed against Henriquez's temple before his men could even react. Without any hesitation, the bullet went straight into Henriquez's temple with a bang. The residents of Jinda village had never seen such a scene. At the same time, the residents of Jinda village retreated 3 feet in fright, their faces drained of color. He killed someone. The second before Henriquez closed his eyes and stopped breathing, his eyes widened in disbelief as he fell to the ground. His subordinates were all highly trained assassins. These assassins could even buy him time to escape the pursuit of a top 10 international secret agent or assassin ranking. However, CE just now was like a phantom, appearing in front of him in seconds and killing him directly. Such skill, other than slaying God who ranked first in the international secret agent ranking, no other male in the world could do this, could he be from an Hun group. However, before Henriquez could think further, his body had already fallen to the ground. The surrounding residents, including Fu Axayan, He Mingyu, and the rest, had a drastic change of expression as they retreated to the corner of the wall in fear. Even Henry's men were stunned by CE's simple yet fast speed that could not be captured by the naked eye. At this moment, CE had put away the gun in his hand. With both hands in his trouser pockets, he kicked Henriquez's body more than 10 meters away, causing Henriquez's body to fall onto Henriquez's most prized subordinate. In front of everyone, CE's mellow voice that was so cold that it was frightening rang. He spoke openly about his identity to Henry's subordinates. Chapter 1822. He's an Hun group. Henry's men were not as smart as Henry. Once they heard what CE said, they assumed that CE was from an Hun group. In the underworld, anyone who was related to an Hun group was terrifying. Therefore, these subordinates who wanted to avenge Henriquez were all frightened. In less than 3 minutes, they left the scene with Henry's body. Everything seemed to have returned to how it was before. The only thing left was the scene that reeked of gunpowder. There was also He Qing's younger brother, He Liang's battered body. Everyone stared at CE as if they had seen a ghost. The gazes from the people of Jinda village could no longer be described as horrifying. Murder. He actually killed someone. It was obvious that the people around them did not know about an Hun group. No one here knew the meaning of an Hun group. It's good that he's dead. That guy just now has killed a lot of people. He's an outlaw from Germany, coming to Country Z to provoke us. Does he really think that there's no one in Country Z? He deserves it. At this time, an old man knocked on the ground with his walking stick and said loudly, "That's right. What's the big deal about him, a German, coming to Country Z to show off?" That's right. The older generation had a deeper sense of patriotism, so when the old man finished speaking, the others around him agreed. Their voices were loud and clear. In the end, it became the group of old men shouting at CE, "Well done, young man. We support you." In the end, the matter was left unsettled. The people of Jinda village were almost harmed by Henry, who came to hunt for treasure because of He Liang. To prevent people from coming here to hunt for treasure, the first thing the village chief did was to deny He Liang's rumor that there was treasure in the mountain behind Jinda village. He Liang was left to He Qing to deal with. However, to prevent He Liang from coveting his family's heirloom, He Qing had Chen Sini bring it back to Longmen City quickly and pass it to Chen Sini's mother, He Xia. At this moment, Yun Jian and Ce had also ended their short stay in the countryside and returned home. He had already given the Eternal Necklace, which he had captured from the international criminals, to Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru was already wearing it. On the third day of their return to Longmen City, Adam, who had just returned from a trip with Lan Su, booked a 5-star hotel in Longmen City and invited everyone inside, saying that he had something important to announce. Adam even called Shuaing and Lin Wei, who were in an Hun organization, over. It was so lively that it was as if it was a joyous occasion. At the same time, Yun Jian was sitting at a dining table in this 5-star hotel, playing the mobile version of Snake that Qing Yu had introduced to her. The prototype of the Snake game was born in 1976. It first appeared on an arcade machine called Blockade. It was a 2-player game. Later, it was modified into a mobile version of Snake. However, mobile phones in this era could not touch the screen, so Yun Jian played with the keyboard on her phone. How is it, Sister Jian? Is it fun? Qin Yu asked Yun Jian after failing the challenge since Ce was not around. It's so. Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile. Wow, Sister Jian, this is your first time playing. How is the snake not dead even when it's so long? Qin Yu could not help exclaiming at Yun Jian's proficiency in the game. Just as she said that, she saw Ce walking over from not far away. Qin Yu made way for him and Ce wrapped his arm around Yun Jian. His handsome face went to Yun Jian's side and asked softly, Xiao Jian, what are you playing? Yun Jian pressed her lips together as Ce's words made her tingle. Sister Jian's playing gluttonous snake. Qin Yu interjected out of the blue and ran off with a grin. Yun Jian felt a little numb from Ce's breath beside her ear. Without looking up, she asked Ce, do you want to play? Sure. Ce did not hesitate at all. He knew that Xiao Jian was just asking, but his hand subconsciously took the phone from her. The moment he took the phone, his slender fingers deliberately held her small hand and caressed it for a full 3 minutes. Yun Jian was speechless. Was he reaching out to take the phone or to caress her hand? Just as Ce refused to let go of Yun Jian's soft hand, Xiao Yunju and the other two who were chasing each other around them stopped abruptly. Chapter 1823. At this moment, Ce's bony hand was holding on to Yun Jian's delicate hand, refusing to let go. Cough, cough, cough. Qin Yiru blushed when she heard what Xiao Yunju said. She quickly walked over to grab Xiao Yunju and dragged the three of them to the side. Fortunately, they were all on the same side. Qin Yu, Gu Nianji, and Luo Berry were all there, so they were not surprised by this. Yun Jian had Ce, Si Luo had Snow Eagle, Qin Yiru had Gu Junjian, Qin Yu had Yun Yi, and Lan Su had Adam. Even Xiao Yunju was holding hands with Duanli, looking extremely happy. Gu Nianji, who was sitting alone in the corner, watched the scene before her. She pouted and waved at Luo Berry. Little Strawberry, come here. Come here quickly. Luo Berry had been secretly eating pastries at the table, but when she heard Gu Nianji calling for her, she took 3 pieces of pastries from the table and walked over to Gu Nianji. Luo Berry did not know that Mo Sen, who was standing nearby in a suit, looked like he was looking at his younger brother, Adam. However, he was actually sizing up Luo Berry from the corner of his eyes. Luo Berry ran towards Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji reached out and put her arm around her shoulder. She said to Luo Berry, Little Strawberry, you're the best. They're all in pairs. Fortunately, you're here. Otherwise, I would be alone. How awkward would that be? Gu Nianji laughed out loud like a man and took 2 wine glasses. She shoved one of them into Luo Berry's arms and said to her, Come, come. Come, come, come. To celebrate our friendship, cheers. Gu Nianji was from Yulong mainland, so she had a forthright aura. Luo Berry, on the other hand, was more delicate. She held the glass of wine and was stunned. Gu Nianji had been taking care of her when she was at Qin Yu's house, like a big sister. Luo Berry grinned at Gu Nianji as she thought about it. She took the glass of wine and clinked it with Gu Nianji's. Just as she was about to put the glass into her mouth, a very beautiful hand reached out and blocked Luo Berry's hand that was about to put the wine glass into her mouth. She can't drink. I'll drink for her. A male voice that Luo Mei had been longing for sounded. The voice was very pleasant to the ears, and there was a hint of a cool breeze in his breath, making people feel refreshed. Mo Sen, who had been watching Adam the entire time and secretly glanced at Luo Berry from the corner of his eyes, couldn't help himself when he saw that Luo Berry was going to drink. He walked over and snatched the wine cup from Luo Berry's hand, downing all the wine in one gulp. Luo Berry was shocked by Mo Sen, who suddenly walked over. She was stunned and didn't react for a long time. You don't have to drink for me, I can drink. Just as Lockberry was about to explain, Mo Sen interrupted. Drinking is bad for a girl's body. Don't drink in the future. After saying that, Mo Sen took away the wine glass in Rockberry's hand. Luo Berry was stunned. Gu Nianji, who was beside her, covered her mouth and snickered secretly behind Luo Berry's back. She thought to herself, my little strawberry, this is all I can do for you. Outsiders did not know that she, Gu Nianji, had a very proud title in Yulong mainland, matchmaker. At this moment, Adam suddenly wrapped his arm around Lan Su's waist in front of everyone and carefully walked over. From the looks of it, he seemed to be afraid that Lan Su would fall. Adam even announced the good news of his treat when he walked in front of everyone. He was going to be a father. That's right, Lan Su was pregnant. Out of the 3 leaders of Enhun, Shuang had the biggest reaction. He walked over to knock Adam's head and shouted, "You're going to be a father before me. I can't accept this." Mo Sen smirked and said to Adam, "We can discuss the wedding now. Mom and Dad are gone. I'm your brother. I'll definitely help you guys make this wedding a grand one." Lin Wei acted like he did not hear anything when he heard that. He did not feel anything. Chapter 1824. Adam's announcement was indeed a pleasant surprise. Once the news was announced, everyone who was present was pleasantly surprised. Everyone's reactions differed greatly as well. Looking at his 3 brothers' reactions, Shuang was the most agitated. Adam even glanced at Shuang smugly and said with a grin, "I can't compare to you in other aspects, but you can't beat me in this lifetime when it comes to being a father earlier than you." Among the 4 leaders of Enhun group, the most boisterous were Adam and Shuang. Lin Wei was the most composed, followed by Mo Sr. What's the use of being a father earlier? It's amazing to have more children. It's still too early for you to compare yourself to me. Shuang chuckled at Adam, unwilling to admit defeat. Then why don't we compete to see who has more children in the future? Whoever loses will go to Amazon for a year. Adam countered. Come on. Do you think I'm scared of you? Shuang replied. Young master, we've made this bet in front of you. You have to remember it in the future, no one is allowed to go back on their word. Adam turned to Ce and said confidently. Ce, whose hand was still on Yunjian's waist, smirked and glanced at Adam and Shuang sharply. I'll send both of you to Amazon tomorrow for a year to practice. How about that? Adam and Shuang declined quickly at Ce's words. Please don't, young master. You can't do that. Yunjian had actually known about Lan Su's pregnancy since a long time ago. Lan Su could not keep it a secret and had told her long ago. Yunjian wore a small smile and pressed her lips together lightly. She did not know that Ce, who was sitting beside her, was already tempted when he heard that Adam and Lan Su were pregnant earlier than her and Xiao Jian. Everyone enjoyed the meal, and nothing unpleasant happened. It could be said to be a very peaceful dinner. Halfway through, Lan Su suddenly called Yunjian outside and gave Yunjian an envelope. He said to Yunjian with some shame, Yunjian, the address of the martial arts family is in this letter. I may not be able to accompany you to collect the letter. I just had a baby, and the doctor said that the first 3 months of pregnancy is not stable, so I know. Give birth to the child peacefully. Whether it's the matters of the Yulong mainland or the matters here, you don't have to care about them until the child is born. Yunjian smiled and said to Lan Su. She, Lan Su, was originally the sorcerer god's #1 protector. Whether or not she could get married was up to the sorcerer god. Lan Su was very touched by Yunjian's words. Just as Yunjian finished her touching words, Yunjian opened her mouth again. But after you give birth, you have to continue to work hard for me. At the very least, you have to earn a few billion back for me. This sentence sounded like she was using Lan Su, but Lan Su knew that Yun Jian meant that she, Yun Jian, would not give up on her even if she rested for a year. Lan Su was even more touched now. All right, you can go in first, Yun Jian said to Lan Su. Lan Su heard this and returned to the dining table. Yun Jian held the envelope in her hand. Just as she stuffed the envelope into her trouser pocket, her phone beeped with a message notification. Beep. Yun Jian opened the phone and clicked on the message. As soon as the message was opened, Yu Xiaoluo's message immediately popped up on the screen. On November 15th, you will depart for the hunting school on time. Come to Min City Military Academy and meet up with the other 2 comrades. At that time, we will send you to the hunting school. You will stay in the hunting school for a year. You will stay at home for the next few days to prepare everything and wait for departure. On November 15th, Siyi's birthday was on November 11th, which meant that she could accompany him at the Inhun organization for 4 days. Chapter 1825. Of course, before Siyi's birthday and before heading to the hunting school, Yun Jian had something else she had to attend to. She had to head to the martial arts family and retrieve the envelope that her mentor had left in the family. The envelope contained a detailed way to contact her mentor. After dinner and returning home, Siyi tugged Yun Jian's hand and led her into the house. If one were to ask why Siyi was pulling Yun Jian into the house, there was no need to ask. It was to make a baby. Once they entered the house, Siyi pushed Yun Jian against the door, using his tall and lean frame to press against her and speak to Yun Jian in a numbing tone. Xiao Jian. Siyi's action sent a shiver down Yun Jian's spine. Pressing her lips together, she was about to speak when Siyi stopped her. His thick breath choked her. The faint, pleasant scent made Yun Jian wrap her arms around his neck and stand on her tiptoes to deliver a kiss. The kiss lasted for more than 10 minutes. Xiao Jian. Siyi murmured softly by Yun Jian's ear. The sound numbed Yun Jian so much that she slumped against him. Just as Siyi was about to unbutton Yun Jian's shirt, Yun Jian suddenly pressed his palm down. No, Xiao Jian, I'll be gentle, Siyi murmured softly as he bent down beside her ear. No, I'm scared. Can we wait a little longer? Yun Jian's eyes darted around as she found a random reason to tell Siyi. Siyi did not do anything else at that, but Yun Jian could tell that he was disappointed. Yun Jian felt guilty. She wanted to do it with him too, cough. But when she remembered that his birthday was coming up, Xiao Jian, you guys are walking so fast. Mom can't catch up to you. Qin Yira's voice came from downstairs. Yun Jian quickly tidied herself up. Seeing that Siyi did not move, she reached out to fasten a few buttons on Siyi's chest. Feeling her small hands pressing on his chest, struggling to button it up, Siyi grabbed her hands and bent down, his handsome face meeting her pretty and delicate face as he said, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Xiao Jian, do you know how alluring you are right now? Siyi's words made Yun Jian blush. Other than him, there was no one else in this world who could make her, slaying God, the top secret agent in the international rankings, reveal such a girlish expression. Do it yourself. Yun Jian gave up on helping Siyi with the buttons and walked to the side. Siyi could not help smirking when he saw Yun Jian's behavior from behind. Was his Xiao Jian shy now? Siyi strode forward and pulled Yun Jian into his arms, pressing Yun Jian against the door with her in his arms before lowering his head to murmur softly in her ear. Xiao Jian is the one who undid the buttons. She has to do it back. I'll let you go when she does it. Yun Jian was bewildered by Siyi's words. Let her go. While Yunjian did not know what Ce meant, Ce pressed himself against Yunjian and kissed her passionately. By letting her go, he meant that if she did not button his shirt when he kissed her, he would keep kissing her like this. Chapter 1826. Qin Yiru had rushed over because Xiao Yunju's mother had returned from recuperation overseas and was now staying at Gu Yunjian's house. The villa Ce bought was only a few minutes' walk away from Gu Yunjian's house, so Qin Yiru had hurried over to tell Yunjian about it. After all, it was Yunjian who brought Xiao Yunju back then. Qin Yiru knocked on the door twice and could not help muttering, "Where did Xiao Jian and Ae go? The house is locked, they should be inside." Inside the house, the heavy atmosphere was still swirling in the air. Ce had pinned Yunjian against the door and placed a slender hand on the back of Yunjian's head to prevent it from hurting when it was knocked against the door. Ce, who felt shameless, kissed her with his lips, looking like he would not let go until she buttoned his shirt. Worse still, Qin Yiru was still outside the house. Yunjian's mouth was gagged by Ce, but she could only grope her way to Ce's chest. Yunjian could push Ce away with brute force and he would not retaliate, but she did not want him to be hurt, so she could only button Ce's shirt with a blush on her face from Qin Yiru, who was outside the door. Yunjian had only buttoned his shirt for Ce just now. Since she was kissed by Ce, she could not see where her hand was going. Perhaps it was because Ce was gripping her mouth, she could not find the right spot with her outstretched hand. As slaying god, she could slit the throat with a single slash and her hacking skills were the best in the world. As the goddess of sorcerer, she had ruled Yulong mainland for thousands of years and had once slain the gods of deity continent. She was regarded as an object of reverence and worship by the world. However, as his woman, she was at a loss. Yunjian had only wanted to reach for the bottom button of his white shirt, but her head was held steady, so she could only grope blindly. Mama Qin, Jijia and Ce Gij must be in the house. Xiao Zhu told me to tell you. Duan Li's sharp voice came from the staircase outside the house. Yunjian and Ce, who were in the house, heard it loud and clear. Duan Li's voice sounded particularly frightening. Her hand slipped from the bottom of Ce's shirt as if she was caught doing something naughty, and her right hand accidentally touched something indescribable. It was scalding and warm. Unable to react in time, Yunjian clenched her fists a few times. What was it? Soft and soft. Hard and hard. So big that she could not wrap her hand around it. Was it a gun he was hiding on him? Yunjian blinked. She could clearly feel the change in Ce's expression. As she thought about it, Ce suddenly stopped kissing her and grabbed her hand that was under him. Panting, he went to Yunjian's ear and whispered to Yunjian in a volume that only the two of them could hear. Xiao Jian, are you playing with fire? She actually held his. If Qin Yiru and Duanli, who were standing outside the door, were not here, he would have tossed her onto the bed right now. It was only then that Yunjian realized what she was grabbing and blushed. Yunjian was about to speak softly. Ce suddenly went to her ear and bit it softly, his warm breath blowing against her ear or neck. Yunjian shuddered. Outside the house, Qin Yiru waited for a while but no one came out. Her first reaction was that something had happened to Xiao Jian and Ae. Qin Yiru quickly ran to get the spare key. Just as she was about to open the door, she saw Yunjian walked out of the room drowsily and glanced at Qin Yiru, asking, "Mom, we just fell asleep. Is there anything you need? I thought something happened to you guys in the house." Xiao Zhu's mother is back. She's over there now. Do you want to go and take a look? Qin Yiru breathed a sigh of relief. There were news reports about family members staying silent in their own bedrooms, only to find a corpse in front of them the next day when they opened the door. Death by electrocution, suffocation, and so on. It was inevitable that Qin Yiru was worried. I'll go take a look. Yun Jian's cheeks were as red as a monkey's butt. Pretending that Ce was asleep, she walked out of the house and closed the door, not letting Ce out. She didn't even dare to imagine what had happened just now. It was located in a small ravine in a very poor mountainous area. It would take more than 3 hours to get from the city to the county in the mountainous area and then to the nearest town. After that, it would take 1 or 2 hours to reach the destination on foot. The nearest town to the destination was called Yunling Town. It was a very fairy-like name. Yun Jian's destination was a place called Yunling Mountain. The martial arts family was built on Yunling Mountain. The construction of this martial arts family was similar to a large temple, but it wasn't a place to burn incense and pray. When Yun Jian arrived at Yunling Town, she was carrying her shoulder bag. Just as she asked the boss of a shop for the location of Yunling Mountain, the boss asked her in surprise, "You're going to Yunling Mountain too? You're going to the martial arts family, the Huang family, to learn martial arts, right?" Yun Jian nodded. Naturally, she wouldn't reveal her intentions. The Huang family's martial arts are famous. Many people have come to the mountain recently to learn martial arts. Chapter 1828. The Huang family was that martial arts family. The Huang family was a martial arts family that had been passed down since ancient times. Among the martial arts families, they were considered the top. Therefore, every year, many youths who loved martial arts would go to Yunling Mountain to study under the Huang family. When the shop owner heard that Yun Jian was going to Yunling Mountain, he naturally wanted her to learn martial arts. The others were all tall and strong young men who went to Yunling Mountain together to learn martial arts. There were also young ladies who would follow the tall and strong young men to Yunling Mountain to learn martial arts. Of course, those young ladies would leave after a few days. However, a girl like Yun Jian, who was carrying a shoulder bag, was obviously going to learn martial arts. The shop owner had never seen such a girl before, so he was surprised when he saw her. He recommended Yun Jian to get acquainted with a few young men in his shop who were also going to Yunling Mountain. When they heard that someone was going to Yunling Mountain, a few young men who were eating in the shop quickly came out to greet her. After all, it was a very good thing to be able to make a few friends in an unfamiliar place. Hello. Are you going to Yunling Mountain too? My name is Song Jiqi. I'm going to Yunling Mountain with my brother, Song Jihui, and a few friends to learn martial arts. Are you going too? The girl who didn't have time to finish her bowl walked out of the shop and greeted Yun Jian. The girl's name was Song Jiqi. Song Jiqi was very welcoming to Yun Jian. Yun Jian nodded subtly. I'm Jiqi's brother, Song Jihui. I'm a university student. This is an activity organized by our club. We're going to learn martial arts from a proper martial arts family. A handsome boy stood beside her. He was about 18 or 19 years old, about 1 or 2 years older than Song Jiqi. He looked very similar to Song Jiqi. One look and one could tell that they were handsome and beautiful. The boy who called himself Song Jihui politely introduced himself to Yun Jian. Yun Jian also nodded politely at the two of them. Little girl, don't be fooled by Jihui and Jiqi's skinny looks. We're all from the same university. In our martial arts club, one of them is the president and the other is the vice president. They're very strong. Most of the boys in the school are no match for them. Another boy walked out of the shop. This boy had dyed his hair yellow. He looked like a local ruffian, but he was quite easygoing. He didn't feel like a hooligan at all. After introducing Song Jiqi and Song Jihui, the boy stuck out his tongue at Yun Jian and introduced himself. My name is Lin Xiang. I'm in the same university as them. I'm a member of the martial arts club. According to Song Jichi, there were 5 members of their martial arts club. Other than Song Jichi, the other 4 were boys. These people were very friendly, and Yun Jian didn't know the way, so she went with them. Song Jichi and the others hadn't finished their wontons yet, so Yun Jian also walked into the store and sat at a table. In addition to Song Jichi and the other 4, there were 3 other people who were planning to go up the mountain with them. These 3 people were slightly older than Song Jichi's group. They were all in their 20s. There were 2 men and 1 woman. These 2 men were quite friendly. They introduced themselves to Yun Jian. Their names were Gong Yiba and Ma Qinggong. However, the woman in her 20s wasn't particularly good-looking. She was only about 1.52 meters tall, but she weighed 120 kilograms. She didn't even bother to stand up. When Yun Jian walked in just now, this woman glanced at Yun Jian with a strange look. Then she buried her head and ate her wontons. After eating the wontons in her bowl, this woman knocked her chopsticks on her bowl and chopsticks. She looked up at Yun Jian and asked in a strange tone. Chapter 1829. Adolescent girls were more or less rebellious. If they weren't rebellious, it would be unscientific. The woman who spoke was called Wang Gonggong. Wang Gonggong didn't look very good. Her nose was a little flat, but her face was covered with thick makeup. She looked like a typical gangster. Wang Gonggong, Gong Yiba, and Ma Qinggong were all university students. However, they were in their 4th year and were obviously a few years older than Song Jichi and the rest. Wang Gonggong was a typical gangster among the female students. She smoked, drank, and went out to play with men. She didn't go back to the dormitory during university curfew. She fell in love and acted like a lady in front of boys. Although Wang Gonggong was ugly and had a bad figure, there were always some boys who were willing to date her when she mingled in society. Wang Gonggong was a quiet girl, but she didn't give any face when she spoke. Of course, this silence was also an act. As long as she was in front of a handsome boy, she would immediately change her tune and act coquettishly. Gong Yiba and Ma Qinggong weren't the boys Wang Gonggong liked, so she couldn't be bothered to pretend. Wang Gonggong said right away that Yun Jian had come to such a place alone because she had fallen out of love. Because a girl like her wouldn't think that Yun Jian was a capable person. Hey, what do you mean by that? Can't she come here alone to learn the profound martial arts of our country? Why do you make it sound like a girl can only come out alone when she's heartbroken? The first person who was unhappy with Wang Gonggong's words was Song Jichi. Song Jichi shouted at Wang Gonggong. Can't I say it? I think she came here alone because she's heartbroken. Wang Gonggong glared at Song Jichi. Song Jichi was so angry that she almost flipped the table. In the end, Song Jihui calmed her down. If it weren't for Gong Yiba and Ma Qinggong's good attitude, Song Jichi and the rest wouldn't have followed Wang Gonggong. Yun Jian pursed her lips and ignored Wang Gonggong. 1.5 hours later, they set off from Yunling town and finally arrived at the foot of Yunling mountain. After another hour of climbing, they finally reached the top of the mountain. As soon as they reached the top, they saw a huge ancient building that looked like a temple. However, its architectural style was completely different from that of a temple. There was also a plaque hanging above the entrance. On the plaque, from right to left, there were 4 words written in ancient seal script, Heavenly Dao Huang Family. As soon as Yun Jian and the others walked through the gate, they saw a group of people shouting and practicing martial arts with an old man who looked like a cultivator immortal standing on the high steps. Every time he displayed a fist technique, a loud shout would come from his throat, ha! Hey! This was an orthodox martial arts family. Are you here to practice martial arts as well? Seeing that someone had entered the door, the old man jumped down from the stairs. After instructing the disciples around him to practice freely, he walked towards Yunjian and the others. Yes. Song Jiechi and the others replied excitedly. Yunjian didn't have the time to stay here and practice martial arts with them. She did not forget her purpose, which was to get the letter. Song Jiechi and the others looked at the old man excitedly and respectfully, trying to join the disciples who practiced martial arts. Yunjian's words suddenly rang out in front of Song Jiechi, Song Jiehui, Wang Gonggong, and the others. She said to the old man. Chapter 1830. Yunjian's words carried a certain authority, causing the elder to pause. Song Jiechi, Song Jiehui, Lin Shiyang, and even Wang Gonggong were speechless. What Yulong continent, daughter of the Wu clan, sorcerer goddess? What the hell was this? Moreover, wasn't Yunjian here to learn martial arts like them? Why did she ask the elder to meet the head of the Huang clan the moment she arrived? What daughter of the Wu clan? What is sorcerer goddess? Are you here to engage in crooked practices? Didn't you ask around before you came? The head of the Huang clan, Huang Bitian, isn't someone anyone can meet. Some people don't even get to meet the head of the Huang clan from the time they joined the clan to learn martial arts until they left. You're just a lovelorn girl with no power or influence. Why would the head of the Huang clan want to meet you? Even Wang Gonggong, who wasn't very satisfied with Yunjian, was in awe of the Huang clan, which was ranked first among the martial arts clans. After hearing Yunjian's words, Wang Gonggong took the initiative to speak to Yunjian. His words sounded as if Yunjian had really come here because she was heartbroken and was here to cause trouble. Song Jiechi and the rest didn't say anything. The old man, who had been teaching a group of students who were also apprentices, was also surprised. Most of the apprentices who came to the Huang clan to learn martial arts were in awe when they spoke to the Huang clan. Not to mention Yunjian, who directly walked up and asked the head of the Huang clan to meet her. She was totally different. The old man had never seen such a clean and tidy little girl with a shoulder bag say such words the moment she came to his door. Obviously, the elder and the people around him didn't know about Yulong continent, much less the sorcerer clan. Of course, Yunjian said this because she knew that the head of the Huang clan, Huang Bitian, must know about the existence of Yulong continent. Putting aside how many times the head of the sorcerer clan, Wu Lan, had sent people to the Huang clan to collect letters, but to no avail. Just based on the fact that Huang Bitian had saved his master's life and left him a letter, his master must have told Huang Bitian a thing or two. However, the old man in front of her didn't know that. When he saw Yunjian open her mouth and ask to see the head of the Huang family, Huang Bitian, he was stunned for a moment, then quickly recovered. Is my Huang family's patriarch someone you can meet just because you want to? The old man immediately drooped his head with an unkind look on his face. Second uncle, what's wrong? Who made you unhappy? At this time, a young girl walked in through the door. She was about 16 or 17 years old and was quite pretty. After the young girl walked in, she circled around Yunjian and asked the old man. She wanted to see your father as soon as she came up the mountain. Of course I won't agree. The old man said to the young girl. His tone was completely different from when he spoke to Yunjian. His voice was much softer. Clearly, to the old man, Yunjian was purely here to cause trouble. The young girl who ran in was obviously the youngest daughter of the Huang family's patriarch, Huang Ling. You want to see my father? Why do you want to see my father? He's not fun. But if you want to see him, I can take you there. Huang Ling still had a childlike innocence. She turned to look at Yunjian and said to Yunjian with a smile. Ling don't get involved. This matter has nothing to do with you. The old man pushed Huang Ling away and continued to shout at Yunjian. If you're here to practice martial arts in my Huang family, then my Huang family welcomes you. But if you're here to cause trouble, then don't blame me, Huang Bihai, for ruthlessly driving you out of my Huang family." Before the old man, Huang Bihai, finished speaking, he suddenly saw 3 young girls in black coming in through the door. These 3 young girls in black were extremely beautiful. Their appearance was second only to Yunjian, but they attracted the attention of everyone present. When the old man, Huang Bihai, saw the 3 young girls in black, his expression changed. His elder brother, Huang Bitian, the patriarch of the Huang family, had once told him that these young girls in black came from a family in a mysterious region. The people there had the ability to destroy the world. So they must not be provoked. Therefore, when Huang Bihai was about to bow to the 3 young girls in black in front of everyone, a voice suddenly rang out. Just when everyone saw Huang Bihai being so respectful to the 3 young girls in black, their hearts were filled with endless questions. They saw Yunjian turn slightly to the side. Her eyes flashed sharply, showing her side profile to the 3 young girls in black. The 3 young girls in black, who made Huang Bihai so respectful, moved their eyes when they saw Yunjian. Then, in front of Song Jiqi, Song Jihui, Lin Xiang, Wang Gonggong, and everyone else present, the 3 young girls in black knelt down to Yunjian directly. They bowed their heads respectfully and exclaimed. Chapter 1831. The 3 girls in black were from the sorcerer tribe of the Yulong continent. Yunjian blinked. Of course, she knew why the 3 girls were here. The sorcerer tribe leader Wulan had sent people from the sorcerer tribe to the Huang family for a few letters. However, no matter how tempting the sorcerer tribe was, the Huang family leader Huang Bitian did not waver. The 3 girls must have been sent by Wulan to ask for the letters again. They just happened to bump into her this time. The 3 of them quickly knelt down and bowed. She. Why are they kneeling to her? Wang Gonggong's eyes turned to Yunjian without blinking. Her pupils constricted slightly. Wang Gonggong did not hate Yunjian very much. She did not want Yunjian to die either. What she said before sounded like she was targeting Yunjian. However, Wang Gonggong had a habit of picking on people. Yunjian, they. Why are they kneeling to you? Wang Gonggong was not the only one surprised. Even Song Jiqi and Song Jihui were shocked. Surprise flashed across everyone's faces. This is not the feudal society of the ancient times. Everyone is equal. Where is your dignity? Could it be that she threatened you? Get up. Wang Gonggong was a very mysterious person. When she was in a good mood, she was nice to everyone. When she was in a bad mood, she was not nice to anyone. Seeing the 3 girls in black kneeling in front of Yunjian and bowing to Yunjian with the etiquette of the Yulong continent, she could not take it anymore. Or maybe the 3 girls in black were too mysterious. People were all cheap. If someone acted like they did not want to talk to you and did not take you seriously, you would think that this person was good and want to get close to her. Wang Gonggong felt that the 3 black-clothed girls were quite mysterious, so he wanted to make friends with them and tried to pull them over. However, when Wang Gonggong reached out her hand, one of the 3 girls in black pushed her away and ignored Wang Gonggong. You don't have to kneel here. After Wang Gonggong was pushed away by one of the 3 black-clothed girls, Yunjian's voice rang out. Hearing this, the 3 girls in black who had ignored Wang Gonggong immediately stood up and retreated to the side. This degree of obedience was in stark contrast to his action of pushing Wang Gonggong away. Wang Gonggong's face instantly darkened. Second uncle, look, this sister looks like a good person. I'll go call my dad. When Huang Linger saw this, she turned her head and winked at Huang Bihai. She then turned around and walked towards her father's residence. Ling. Huang Bihai simply couldn't stop this naughty girl. By the time he shouted, Huang Linger had already walked far away. After a while, Huang Linger brought over a man in his 50s. He was wearing a righteous martial arts uniform and had short hair. He was about to enter his old age. This person was the head of the Huang family, Huang Bidian. "Dad, it's this sister." Huang Linger led Huang Bidian to Yunjian. She leaned forward mischievously and stuck out her tongue at everyone. Then she pointed at Yunjian. It was apparent that Huang Bidian had heard about Yunjian from Huang Linger before he came. Coupled with the presence of the three witches, Huang Bidian had basically determined Yunjian's identity. He looked at Yunjian and frowned. "You're the disciple of expert Bailey. The witch tribes. Which god?" Bailey was a surname. The expert Bailey that Huang Bidian mentioned was her teacher. Yunjian nodded. "You can say that. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have learned all of this." "Then I can't give you the letter." Huang Bidian frowned and refused. In the eyes of everyone present, Huang Bidian was a supreme existence. The head of the Huang family. The head of the Huang family, which was ranked first among the martial arts families. Huang Bidian directly rejected Yunjian. No one was surprised. However, they all thought that Yunjian would definitely beg Huang Bidian for what she wanted. She seemed to be begging Huang Bidian for the letter. Just when everyone thought that Yunjian would beg Huang Bidian to give her the letter, Yunjian's eyes flashed with a murderous intent. Standing in front of everyone, her petite figure refracted the words that made everyone present unable to help but submit to her. In the next second, she flipped her hands and two butterfly knives appeared in her hands, one on each side. The blades reflected the sunlight, and the light from the knives blinded everyone's eyes. They couldn't help but squint. When everyone opened their eyes to look at her, they heard her cold words suddenly ring out. Chapter 1832. She had to get this letter. It was not only because her mentor in her past life had taught her these skills and allowed her to survive in that bloody world. Yunjian's intuition told her that her mentor, Bailey Expert, had an inextricable relationship with the thousands of continents. She had sent Wulan to search the entire Yulong mainland, but she could not find any trace of her mentor, Bailey Expert. On Earth, as long as one was a righteous earthling, nothing could escape her eyes. In Yulong mainland, the power of the sorcerer tribe was spread all over the continent. However, she could not find any information about her mentor. What did this mean? The only explanation was that her mentor was neither from Earth nor the Yulong mainland. It was more likely that he came from a continent of a higher level than Yulong mainland. Although Yulong mainland was not the lowest level continent, in the thousands of years since the sorcerer god's departure, Yulong mainland had fallen from its former glory of being second only to deity mainland. Yunjian's intuition told her that her mentor was most likely from deity mainland. Yunjian did not know that Ce had regained all his memories, so she did not ask him. Her soul returned to reality. When Yunjian finished speaking, everyone's pupils contracted. Even Huang Bidian sucked in a deep breath. Kosha mercenaries. Slaying God. Apart from Huang Bidian and Huang Bihai who took a deep breath, Lin Xiang also cried out in surprise. It was obvious that they knew what these two names represented. After exclaiming this, Lin Xiang frowned. He didn't even know why he was exclaiming. These two titles, I seem to have heard of them somewhere before. University students would not pay attention to these things. Most university students would only pay attention to the opposite sex. They did not pay attention to national or international affairs at all. Sometimes, when the class subscribed to a newspaper, the newspaper would report on national or international affairs. Only then would the students pay more attention to it. Of course, the people who knew about organizations or people like kosher mercenaries and slaying God were usually those who were in this world. Huang Bidian and Huang Bihai must have heard about it. But for university students like Lin Xiang, Song Jiqi, Song Jihui, and Wang Gonggong, even if they wanted to know, they had no way to do so. Haven't you heard a lot of things? You brat, you always say that you've heard of something big. Where did you hear it from? I can't tell you the details, so you should wash up and go to the side. Song Jihui walked over and knocked on Lin Xiang's head as he said with a half-smile. Lin Xiang scratched his head and pursed his lips. I really seem to have heard of it somewhere before, but even so, whether it was Song Jiqi, Song Jihui, Lin Xiang, or Wang Gonggong, they were all shocked by Yunjian's arrogant words. Perhaps Yunjian's tone was too arrogant? Or perhaps it was because the titles of kosher mercenaries and slaying gods sounded domineering. When they turned to look at Huang Bidian and Huang Bihai's reaction, they saw their eyes widen. When they looked at Yunjian again, they were so shocked that it was as if they had eaten dog poop. They looked as if they had heard something big that they had never heard of before. Especially Huang Bihai, who had been rude to Yunjian from the start, he was the most unsettled. His hand was trembling like a spring as he pointed at Yunjian. He screamed in horror, "YYU, ahem." Huang Bidian was obviously smarter than Huang Bihai. He immediately stopped Huang Bihai from spilling the beans. Yunjian's self-disclosure shocked Huang Bidian, but it changed his mind. Slaying God of kosher mercenaries. Slaying God alone was enough to wipe out the Huang family, let alone slaying God who had kosher mercenaries under her command. Therefore, Huang Bidian did not change his mind. He could not. However, Huang Bidian had already handed over the letter when Wulan had sent someone to retrieve it. After 2 seconds of silence, Huang Bidian looked at Yunjian and made his request. Chapter 1833. Huang Bidian's words caused everyone's hearts to tighten. Especially Song Jiqi, Song Jihui, and Wang Gonggong. Song Jiqi had even clasped her hands together. She was clearly not the main character, so why was she feeling nervous? It was as if she was the one who had to endure the hypnotism of the Huang family's eldest disciple. However, Song Jiqi knew that her current reaction was no doubt that she was putting herself in the shoes of Yunjian and Huang Bidian. It was like a racing enthusiast watching his favorite racer race against another excellent racer at the critical moment of rushing to the finish line, which made him feel nervous both physically and mentally. That was how Song Jiqi felt at this moment. Yunjian, who was standing in front of everyone, narrowed her eyes slightly. Her gaze was indifferent, but in front of everyone, she accepted Huang Bidian's challenge without hesitation. All right. As long as she was given the chance, Yunjian had never encountered anything she couldn't accomplish. Yunjian knew that Huang Bidian had taken a step back. In the beginning, Huang Bidian had kept his mouth shut and refused to hand over the letter no matter what. Sometimes, revealing one's identity could save a lot of trouble. The reason Yunjian brought up her identity today was to change Huang Bidian's mind. Yunjian wasn't stupid. Unless she had no other choice, she wouldn't use the most absolute method to achieve her goal. For example, if Huang Bidian rejected her and she went on a killing spree, then not only would she be a lunatic, but she would also be a fool. If one were to ask why this was the case, first of all, Yunjian would be exhausting her own strength to wipe out the entire Huang family. The only benefit she would receive was a letter. Furthermore, she would have to use her kosher mercenaries' influence to erase the Huang family's traces in history and on the international stage. It would be a waste of money and effort. It would be better for Huang Bidian to take a step back. It would be more convenient and simpler. Ling call your eldest senior brother out. Only then did Huang Bidian turn his head to look at his youngest daughter, Huang Ling. Huang Linger pursed her lips and muttered, Dad, you could have just given the letter to this big sister. Why did you have to call eldest senior brother out? It's so troublesome. Besides, she doesn't look like a bad person." Just as Huang Linger said this, she saw her father, Huang Bitian, cast a sidelong glance at her. Seeing this, Huang Linger's words were all buried in her stomach. In the end, Huang Linger was still somewhat afraid of her father. She was frightened by Huang Bitian's words. She turned around and pouted, then angrily ran to find her senior brother. "My apologies. Master Bailey's items have attracted a lot of attention in recent years. Many people have pretended to be Master Bailey's disciples and wanted to get them from me. So, please forgive me." After Huang Linger ran off to find her eldest senior brother, Huang Bitian turned his head and cupped his fists towards Yun Jian to express his apology. "It's fine," Yun Jian replied. Naturally, this was not a problem for her. Hypnotism was indeed her teacher's ultimate skill. Her teacher had also said that in this hypnotism, the most important thing for a scholar was talent. Those without talent would only be able to scratch the surface. Yun Jian was not boasting. Her teacher had told her this before. Her talent was the best among all the people he had met in his life. In less than 10 minutes, more than 10 people came into the house from the backyard. The man in the lead was about 20 years old. He had a dignified appearance and wore martial arts attire. He was the eldest senior brother of the Huang family that Huang Bitian had mentioned. The group of people beside the eldest senior brother of the Huang family consisted of both men and women. However, all of them wore proper martial arts attire. Clearly, these people were different from those who came to the mountain to learn martial arts. Chapter 1834. The orthodox successor of the Huang family's martial arts was led by this dignified man in his 20s. The group of people behind him were all successors of the Huang family. Apart from the Huang family eldest senior brother, any disciple that the Huang family head, Huang Bitian, took in would be included in the ranking. Huang Bitian's eldest disciple was this eldest senior brother. His second disciple was everyone's second senior brother, the second junior brother of his eldest disciple. In order of seniority, Huang Ling was Huang Bitian's daughter and his youngest disciple. Thus, she was the junior sister of these people. The ranking of orthodox martial arts families was indeed complicated. Those who were not in the circle would be confused by this complicated relationship. In short, there was one thing to remember. Wushu was the orthodox unique skill of an aristocratic family. The disciples of the head of the aristocratic family were the ones who were ranked among the senior brothers, junior brothers, sisters, and junior sisters. They were different from those who came to learn from Huang Bihai like Song Jieqi and the others. It was not only in terms of martial arts that the aristocratic families only passed down to their own members. They only taught some simple martial arts to outsiders. In terms of physical strength and endurance, the orthodox disciples of the Huang family started learning martial arts from a young age. As for people like Song Jieqi who came to learn martial arts by themselves, some of them would leave after a few days or a few months. Their perseverance was definitely not as good as the orthodox disciples of the aristocratic families who started practicing martial arts from a young age. Master. The dozen or so people led by the Huang family eldest senior brother walked up to Huang Bitian and used the most standard martial arts hand gesture to bow to him. Huang Bitian nodded and waved his hand. Master, why did you call us out? Eldest senior brother of the Huang family asked. The Huang family eldest senior brother was called Huang Yiqing. This was not the Huang family eldest senior brother's real name. After the disciples of the Huang family became Huang Bitian's disciples, they were given names. According to the order, the men were called Huang Yiqing, Huang Erqing, the women were called Huang Yihong, Huang Erhong. These names were not particularly pleasant to the ears, but Huang Bitian felt comfortable using them. Of course, The Huang family eldest senior brother was already one, so the women were not named Huang Yihong. Huang Bitian's youngest daughter, Huang Ling, was an exception. I only called your eldest senior brother. Why did you call out the other senior brothers and sisters? Huang Bitian glanced at Huang Linger from the corner of his eyes. Hee, isn't this for everyone to join in the fun? Dad, look, everyone is bitterly practicing martial arts. This is so tiring. People should strike a balance between work and rest. Huang Linger mischievously winked at Huang Bitian. Huang Linger's senior brothers and sisters all covered their mouths and laughed. It was obvious that Huang Linger's mischievousness had not been going on for a day or two. Huang Bitian was so infuriated by Huang Linger's words that he wanted to scold her, but he couldn't bear to do so. In the end, he could only keep his mouth shut. All right, so be it. Huang Bitian's face darkened. In the end, he introduced Yun Jian to Huang Yiqing and asked Huang Yiqing to hypnotize Yun Jian. If she can withstand your hypnosis technique, then she must be the disciple of Bailey Jianren. Huang Bitian finished speaking and added another sentence. Yes. Huang Yiqing was very obedient. He only turned his head to look at Yun Jian, and did not show any other expression. The Huang family eldest senior brother, Huang Yiqing, was a dignified and upright man. His face was unforgettable. She's Bailey Jianren's disciple? Master, I don't think there's even a need to try. Who is eldest senior brother? Don't you know how strong he is? Also, this girl is so skinny. Everyone has seen Bailey Jianren's appearance in the past. How could such a powerful master accept such a skinny girl as his disciple? Chapter 1835. The girl who spoke up was one of Huang Ling's senior sisters and Huang Bitian's disciple. Because she was ranked 9th among all the senior brothers and junior sisters, she was called Huang Jiuhong. As Huang Jiuhong spoke, she glanced at Yun Jian. From her expression, it seemed that she didn't like Yun Jian very much. Unlike Wang Gonggang, who didn't like Yun Jian, Wang Gonggang didn't have any bad feelings towards Yun Jian. At least, he didn't want to kill Yun Jian. Huang Jiuhong also didn't have any bad intentions towards Yun Jian. Ordinary people didn't encounter many things and wouldn't be envied by girls. That was because they themselves were existences that didn't shine. If a person didn't exist, they would be automatically ignored by others. But a shining figure like Yun Jian was a piece of gold no matter where she went. As long as it was gold, it would always attract attention. Huang Jiuhong only looked down on Yun Jian because she thought she could defeat her most admired eldest senior brother. How many people had her eldest senior brother used the hypnosis technique taught by Master Bailey? How many people had fled because of her eldest senior brother's hypnosis technique? Why did Yun Jian think she could compare to her eldest senior brother? Jiuhong, back down. What did Master teach you not to look down on others? Even Huang Bitian himself thought that Yun Jian definitely couldn't compare to his eldest senior disciple. But Huang Bitian was a good person. He gave face to everyone. Some people would stand in front of you and look down on you, mocking and ridiculing you. Some people would look down on you, but would give you face. When comparing the two, the latter would naturally be better. When Huang Jiuhong heard Huang Bitian's words, she curled her lips and muttered to herself, "What's wrong with you? You don't have any skills to begin with, and you don't allow people to talk about you. Then just wait and see. Watch my eldest senior brother beat you up." Once Huang Jiuhong gave the order, Huang Yiqing stepped forward and began hypnotizing Yun Jian in front of everyone, as per his master's order. Yun Jian could tell that Huang Yiqing's hypnotism was the most rudimentary and low-level technique he had ever learned. Perhaps this kind of hypnotism could be used in front of other people for a while, but in front of professionals, it was not qualified at all. The eldest disciple of the Huang family, Huang Yiqing, who was standing in front of Yunjian, took out a rope with a small ball hanging from it. He placed the small ball in front of Yunjian and shook it twice. Then, he said in a delicate voice, "Close your eyes and open them again." These were all steps of hypnosis. Yunjian did as she was told. Eldest senior brother is awesome. Let this overconfident girl know your strength. At this moment, Yunjian heard Huang Jiuhong shout at Huang Yiqing. The surrounding people watched the scene with all their might. Chapter 1836. Perhaps no one had seen when Yunjian had turned the tables and hypnotized Huang Yiqing. But in fact, from the moment Huang Yiqing asked her to close and open her eyes, she had already begun to hypnotize Huang Yiqing. As for Huang Yiqing's hypnotism, it had no effect on her at all. Later, she told Huang Yiqing that his junior apprentice sister was calling him. Everyone knew that hypnotism required many external factors to hypnotize someone. The process of hypnotism was also related to a person's willpower. By the time Huang Yiqing turned around, he was already affected by external factors. If Yunjian hypnotized him directly, he would see the horrifying image in his mind. This was the reason why he hugged his head and squatted down to exclaim in shock. Huang Bidian had already guessed that Yunjian was expert Bailey's disciple. Today, he had asked his eldest disciple to hypnotize Yunjian to confirm that Yunjian was expert Bailey's disciple. Secondly, it was just a formality. Never in his wildest dreams did he expect that Yunjian's ability today was almost the same as Bailey's shows back then. In fact, her talent in hypnotism was even higher than expert Bailey's. Huang Bidian opened his mouth several times, wanting to speak, but in the end, he swallowed his saliva and remained silent. "Master, this means that she really is expert Bailey's disciple." Huang Jiuhong, who had been disdainful of Yunjian, swallowed his saliva and licked his lips as he asked Huang Bidian in astonishment. Although they didn't know who Master Bailey was, Song Jiqi, Wang Gonggong, and the others could guess that Master Bailey wasn't an ordinary person when they saw how respectful Huang Bidian and the others were when they mentioned his name. Was Yunjian really expert Bailey's disciple? Everyone looked at Huang Bidian in unison, waiting for him to confirm it. In front of everyone, Huang Bidian nodded. Yes. However, Huang Bidian walked over to Yunjian under Huang Jiuhong's shit-eating expression. He bowed deeply to Yunjian and said, "I'm sorry for offending you in the past. Back then, I was fortunate enough to save Master Bailey. Master Bailey also helped my Huang clan to become one of the top martial arts families. Master Bailey's kindness to my Huang clan is far greater than the simple act of saving his life. Therefore, even though my Huang clan has been in a difficult situation all these years, I didn't open the letter that Master Bailey left for me, telling me to look for him if I was in trouble. Since you are the disciple of Master Bailey, I will give you this letter as promised." After Huang Bidian finished speaking, he turned around and returned to his residence to retrieve the letter. About 10 minutes later, Huang Bidian returned with a thick envelope in his hand. There were probably several layers of envelopes inside this envelope. The letter left behind by Bailey Jiao was at the innermost layer. From this, it could be seen how important this letter was to Huang Bidian. Once the envelope was handed to Yunjian, the latter unwrapped the envelope in a few moves. "Is this the letter left behind by Master Bailey? Let us take a look. We've already opened it anyway." Huang Jiuhong quickly dispelled the awkward atmosphere. She walked over and was about to look at the envelope in Yunjian's hand. Just as she looked over, Yunjian dodged. Huang Jiuhong stomped her foot and pouted. In the end, Huang Bidian glared at her and she didn't say anything. Everyone watched as Yunjian opened the envelope and took it out. When she saw the words on the envelope, her eyes lit up. Then, she seemed to be shocked by the words on the envelope. Seeing this, the surrounding group of people were somewhat curious. Even Huang Bidian was curious. Yun Jian was the kind of person who could remain calm even if the sky collapsed. Huang Bidian felt the same way about her. When he saw her shocked expression, he couldn't help but be even more surprised. In fact, Yun Jian wasn't just shocked. Her heart was in turmoil. However, she didn't show it on her face. Chapter 1837. Yun Jian was rarely surprised. However, whenever she was surprised, she would only appear slightly surprised on the surface. However, for someone like Yun Jian, who did not show her emotions on her face, a little surprise was enough to express the shock in her heart. The content of the letter was very simple. However, if one thought about it carefully, there was an inconceivable magical power to it. The content of the letter was as follows: Shah, my little disciple, although we have not formally acknowledged each other as your master, please allow me to address you as such. Were you surprised when you saw this letter? Are you surprised that I knew that the person who opened the letter wasn't family head Huang, but you? Were there many doubts in your heart? All these years, I know your every move, including you as the sorcerer god. How is it? That brat divine lord did not mistreat you, did he? If that brat mistreated you, I will definitely teach him a lesson in the future. That brat has been pestering you ever since you were the sorcerer god. He is like a shadow. I have helped you to stop him several times. The next time we meet, you must treat me to 100 bottles of good wine. No, that brat divine lord should be the one to invite me. If that brat dares to not invite me, let him hug his butt tightly. Don't let me catch him and give him 100 whips. Alright, I know that you must have many doubts now. It is not appropriate for me to say too much in this letter. Alright, my little disciple, I will not force you to say anything more. My good disciple, remember one thing. If you want to find me, go to the hunting academy. I will wait for you there. The way this letter was written was indeed her teacher's style. The handwriting was also written by her teacher, so there was no mistake. Yun Jian blinked. She was indeed surprised by the words in the letter. How did her teacher know that the person who received this letter was definitely her? Could it be that he had the ability to predict the future? Furthermore, he seemed to have known her when she was the sorcerer god in her previous life. He even knew Ce, who was the divine lord. Yun Jian had not recovered all her memories as the sorcerer god, so she could not find traces of her teacher. And her teacher actually wanted her to go to the hunting school to find him. Everything was premeditated. Even when he was slaying God in his past life, his master's appearance was something that was bound to happen. Or perhaps, all of this was just a coincidence? Yun Jian, there seems to be words at the back of the letter too. Song Jiqi, who was standing in the distance, couldn't see the contents of the letter in Yun Jian's hand clearly. However, she could vaguely see that there were words on the back of the letter in Yun Jian's hand, so she reminded her. Upon hearing this, Yun Jian relaxed her brows slightly. She flipped the letter to the back and saw that the same words were written on the back of the letter. Following the long letter in front of him, it was clear that his teacher had added a sentence that sounded like an old urchin. By the way, after you come to the hunting school, bring the Divine Lord Kid here if it's convenient. However, even if you don't bring the Divine Lord Kid here, I know that kid is like a sticky candy, no different from a bum bug. Wherever you go, he'll definitely follow. When Yun Jian read this, her teacher's smug expression as if he knew everything like the back of his hand flashed across her mind, along with the way he gently stroked his beard. She twitched the corner of her mouth, not knowing how to describe her current expression of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. What's written on the letter? Are you done reading it? Can you show it to us now? The more Huang Jiuhong looked at Yun Jian, the more curious she became. If it wasn't for Huang Bitian's gaze, Huang Jiuhong would have leaned over to look at the contents of the letter in Yunjian's hand. Since the letter is already hers, let's not crowd around. Disperse, let's go and cultivate. Don't crowd around here. Huang Bitian waved his hand. Master, this letter. Yunjian was the one who took it from you. What's wrong with us taking a look? Before Huang Jiuhong could finish her sentence. On the other side, Yunjian had taken out a lighter from nowhere and burned the letter. After doing this, Yunjian walked out. It seemed that she had to go to the hunting school this time. Since her teacher knew many of her identities, including her as the witch god. Then, did her teacher know the background of the mysterious person? And as the sorcerer goddess, why did she fall? Chapter 1838. Yunjian was unaware of all these doubts and doubts. She had no way of finding them out at this moment. To solve her doubts, she had to go to the hunting school. Seeing Yunjian burn the letter and walk out of the Huang family's door, everyone was shocked. Master, she burned the letter. She. Huang Jiuhong screamed in shock. The letter has been given to her. How she deals with it is her own business. Jiuhong, you are so impatient. If you continue to be like this in the future, then don't learn our Huang family's inherited martial arts. Our inherited martial arts are not suitable for someone as impatient as you. Huang Bitian interrupted Huang Jiuhong's words and said coldly with a sullen face. Hearing Huang Bitian's words, Huang Jiuhong was dumbfounded. Finally, he swallowed his saliva and was speechless. Yunjian, who was walking down the stairs, turned her head halfway and glanced at the plaque with the words, Huang family of the heavenly Tao, written on it. Then, she turned her head to look at Song Jieqi and the rest. If Song Jieqi and the rest didn't know the way, she wouldn't have found the Huang family so quickly, and she wouldn't have received the letter her master left for her so quickly. Yunjian pursed her lips and curled her lips at Song Jieqi before she left. We'll meet again if fate wills it. In the vast sea of people, if fate wills it, even 1 billion people wouldn't be able to stop fate from meeting again. But if fate wills it, even if they lived in the same neighborhood, it would be harder than ascending to the heavens. After Yunjian said that, she turned and left. Seeing this, Song Jieqi was stunned. Then, she waved at Yunjian and whispered, goodbye. After her rebirth, this was the first time Yunjian went to the Enhan organization. Before her rebirth, she was an agent from the Enhan organization. The Enhan organization wasn't located on some remote island. Yunjian knew the exact location. The Enhan organization wasn't under the jurisdiction of any country. It was extremely difficult for outsiders to enter Enhan organization. Some people couldn't even find the entrance to Enhan organization. The Enhan organization's base was huge. It would take a long time to drive from one end to the other. Yunjian made a trip back to Longmen City and waited until the 10th of November to depart for Enhan Group. Before that, Mo Sen and Adam were left in Longmen City. Ce had to be by her side, and Lan Su had just gotten pregnant. Adam naturally couldn't bear to take Lan Su on a long journey to Enhan organization. Mo Sen was the elder brother. In consideration of his younger brother, Mo Sen decided to return to Enhan organization by himself. Of course, during this period of time, Mo Sen and Rockberry maintained the kind of relationship where they would occasionally greet each other when they saw each other, but neither of them would speak much. Luo Berry didn't talk much because she was shy. When she saw the man she liked, she would talk incoherently. Mo Sen, on the other hand, did not know what to say. Mo Sen returned to Enhan earlier than Yunjian. On the night of his return, he came to Qing Yu's house early in the morning. Yunjian snatched Qing Yu's pillow and sat on the sofa, waiting for Qing Yu's homemade pastries for her to eat. Qingyu had stopped researching poisons recently and had started researching pastries instead. The pastries tasted horrible, but they were getting better recently. When Qingyu brought out the pastry she made herself, Gunyanji pinched her nose without giving face. Ha! What's this burnt smell? It's suffocating. It's good enough that I'm cooking for you for free. Why are you yelling? You're eating my food and staying at my place. You're even sleeping on my bed and wearing my pajamas. You're such a busybody, Gunyanji. Qingyu retorted. Okay, let sister have a taste. Seeing Qingyu bring out the pastries, Gunyanji stretched her hand to take them. Sister Qingyu's pastries are getting better and better. Luo Berry was a sweet talker. She stuck her tongue out at Qingyu after taking a bite. She shoved the pastry into her mouth, chewing and swallowing it without hesitation. After finishing the pastries slowly, Yunjian closed her eyes and rested her hands behind her head. After 2 seconds of silence, Yunjian suddenly spoke, "You've been standing outside the door for half an hour. Aren't you going to knock? Are your legs tired?" When Yunjian finished, everyone's hands paused. Luo Berry blinked and ran to open the door. Luo Berry did not know who it was. She thought it was Sister Qinyu's brother Yunyi. However, when Luo Berry opened the door and wanted to call out Brother Yunyi obediently, she was met with Imo Sen's calm and handsome face. She was so shocked that she almost fell backward. Chapter 1839. It wasn't the first time Luo Berry had been so careless. Perhaps it was her personality. When she suddenly saw someone she wanted to see, she would be frightened. After Imo-sen helped her up, Luo Berry blushed. "How old are you? Why are you so careless? What if you fall and hurt yourself?" Imo-sen yelled at Luo Berry after straightening him up. What if she fell and hurt herself? He was about to leave and return to the Inhun organization. She didn't know how to take care of herself. What if she hurt herself again? I'm sorry. Luo Berry shrank back from Imo-sen's shout. She couldn't help but apologize to Imo Sr. Little Strawberry, you didn't hit him. Why are you apologizing? Can't you tell that he cares about you? Gu Nianji walked over and grabbed Luo Berry's hand, pulling her to the side. With that, Gu Nianji was about to pull Luo Berry to the side. Never see you again. When Imo-sen heard Gu Nianji say that Luo Berry would never see him again, his heart tightened. Gu Nianji giggled at Yunjian, then turned to look at Imo-sen fiercely. She put her arm around Luo Berry's shoulder and said to Imo-sen confidently, "That's right. My little strawberry will be with me every day from now on. We'll sleep together, bathe together. Oh, right, we'll even rub each other's backs when we bathe." Gu Nianji even reached out to rub Luo Berry's back. It looked like she was really rubbing Luo Berry's back. Gu Nianji's words made Luo Berry's face turn as red as an apple. Yunjian admired it as she ate the pastries. She was so relaxed that she almost crossed her legs. No. Hearing Gu Nianji's words, Mo-sen's face darkened. He said it without even thinking. Luo Berry wanted to sleep with Gu Nianji. Bathe together. She wanted to rub each other's backs when bathing. He would never allow it. For some reason, Luo Berry's face turned red when she heard Mo-sen say no. Ayoyo, what right do you have to say no? I'm being intimate with my little strawberry. Why are you, an outsider, joining in the fun? Speaking of which, my little strawberry's development is really good. Those 2 big breasts, I can't even hold them with my hands. Gu Nianji smiled wretchedly. She even moved her fingers up and down in a circle to demonstrate grabbing breasts. There was no need to mention how wretched that was. At this moment, Mo Sen's face was as dark as it could get. The next second, he suddenly grabbed Luo Berry's hand and dragged her out. Before he left, he said, "I'm taking her away. I can't let her stay in this dirty place." Just because of this reason, he took her away. Gu Nianji waited for Mo Sen to take Rockberry away, then held her stomach and rolled around on the sofa where Yunjian was sitting. The sofa was very soft, and Yunjian sat on it, trembling from Gu Nianji's actions. In the end, Yunjian slapped Gu Nianji off the sofa and onto the floor. Less than 2 days after Mo Sen took Rockberry to an Hun organization, on the 10th of November, Yunjian also set off for an Hun organization. On the 11th of November, CE had just returned to his residence from an Hun organization's base. As soon as he arrived, his eyes lit up slightly. His residence was surrounded by balloons, and the display in the middle of the room even had a big, "Happy Birthday" written on it. Birthday. Only then did CE remember that today was his birthday. Since he was young, he had never celebrated his birthday again after his mother passed away. In the end, he even forgot his own birthday. Who released the balloons today? Who released the birthday wishes? Only the 4 leaders of an Hun organization could enter his residence. Other than that, if anyone else entered, the snipers outside would immediately shoot the person who did not have time to enter, regardless of gender. Just as CE was thinking about this, the bathroom door in his residence suddenly opened, and a petite figure flashed out of the bathroom. Yunjian, who had just finished showering, exuded a milky fragrance. Her hair was disheveled and was still wet. Yunjian only had a bath towel around her. Her voluptuous breasts were wrapped under the short bath towel, revealing half of her full breasts. Her little feet were bare as she stood on the floor. Just looking at her was enough to arouse one's desire. Chapter 1840. Yunjian had been in the Hun organization for many years in her previous life, so she knew the inside of the organization like the back of her hand. However, she had never come into contact with the leader of an Hun organization in her previous life. The Hun organization had a residence specially for the leader, but from what Yunjian knew in her previous life, the leader rarely came back here. Hence, Yunjian didn't know much about the leader of the Hun organization, CE. In addition, CE's residence was surrounded by an inescapable net. There were snipers on all 4 sides, and the place was strictly guarded 24/7. Even a fly wouldn't be able to fly in. Other than the 4 leaders of the Hun organization, Adam, Mo Sen, Shuaying and Lin Wei, anyone else who stepped into this place would be killed without mercy. This rule had been set by CE when Yunjian was in the Hun organization in her previous life. In her second life, Yunjian didn't expect that after going around in circles, she would escape from the control of the Hun organization after obtaining the Kosha mercenaries with much difficulty in her previous life. After going back and forth, she was back here today. And today, she was in the room of the leader of the Hun organization, CE. No matter how good the snipers at the door were, they couldn't sense when Yunjian avoided their attention and walked into CE's residence. No one knew that Yunjian had not only walked into CE's residence, but also decorated it meticulously. This lively style was completely different from the lifeless style of CE's original residence. CE's residence in the Hun organization was all black, especially his bedroom, which stood out. Before Yunjian came, the curtains in the room were all black. As long as the curtains were drawn, even day would turn into night. The bed, including the pillows and covers on the bed, were all black. The wall at the head of the bed was also black, except for the other 3 walls which were painted white, and some other places were painted with other colors that could be ignored. The entire layout was black. Yunjian went into the house and blew up a few balloons. She wrote the words, "Happy Birthday," on the screen. The atmosphere in the house was obviously much better, and it was no longer as lifeless as it was at the beginning. The room was filled with Siyi's unique scent. Yunjian had been lying on Siyi's bed and taking a nap for the entire morning. It was noon and the sun was high in the sky. Even though the air conditioner was turned on, Yunjian still felt sticky. Hence, she borrowed Siyi's towel and entered Siyi's bathroom to take a cold shower. However, she saw Siyi the moment she stepped out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around her waist. Yunjian wasn't wearing anything except a towel wrapped around her chest. She had just taken a shower, so the fragrance of her body made Siyi, who had just returned to the room, feel an indescribable feeling. He felt his lower body tighten. You're back. Yunjian gulped and looked up at Siyi, who was walking toward her. Her red lips parted slightly as she held on to the towel to prevent it from falling. Yunjian had no idea how alluring she looked to Siyi. Siyi stared at Yunjian with a burning gaze, looking like he wanted to bore a hole through her. Yunjian was a little embarrassed from being stared at. She blushed and looked down at the floor, saying, "Cough. It's your birthday today, so I came all the way from Longmen City to celebrate your birthday." Before she could finish, however, a familiar fresh scent that belonged to a man wafted to her nose. In the next second, Siyi wrapped his arms around Yunjian, who was only wrapped in a towel with half of her hand still holding on to the towel. Yunjian opened her mouth and buried herself in Siyi's embrace. She was so embarrassed that she could not speak. Siyi's magnetic and rich male voice rang above her. There was a subtle hint of uncontrollable emotion in his voice that was different from before. "Xiao Jian, you're so beautiful." Chapter 1841. Yunjian's entire body trembled slightly. Siyi was acting very strangely today. In spite of it, Yunjian had come prepared. A second ago, Siyi had placed his hands on Yunjian's buttocks, causing Yunjian's face to turn red. The next second, Yunjian stood on her tiptoes, wrapped her arms around Siyi's neck, and kissed him. Siyi had not expected Yunjian to suddenly kiss him. Her sweet lips were like ice cream on a hot summer day. Just as you were about to faint from the heat, your eyes were about to swell, your whole body was sweating profusely, and you were about to faint from heatstroke. It gave you a refreshing feeling. However, to Siyi, her beautiful lips were even sweeter than an ice cream on a hot summer day when he was about to faint. She was an existence that could not be compared to any cheap goods because she was his one and only. Although this was not the first time she had kissed Siyi, Yunjian did not know why, but she felt that this kiss with Siyi was very different from the previous ones. Perhaps it was because she only had a towel wrapped around her body today. Towel. Yunjian suddenly remembered that she only had a towel wrapped around her body, and the towel only covered half of her chest. She was not wearing anything underneath. Yunjian's slender arms and half of her chest were in close contact with the air, and it was chilly. At first, Yunjian still used one hand to hold on to the shaky and unstable towel. However, when she saw Siyi earlier, Yunjian forgot about this. She reached out and wrapped her arms around Siyi's neck, and kissed him on the lips. She only remembered her current situation when she lost herself in the kiss. At this moment, Yunjian's face flushed red. Just as Yunjian was about to withdraw her hand from Siyi's neck, the shaky towel on her body suddenly disintegrated and fell. That white towel had fallen off. In a lounge somewhere in the Inhun organization, Lin Wei sat on the sofa in the lounge. Beside him, Shuang was half sitting on Lin Wei's table. His slender legs, perfect curves, and that handsome face. Lin Wei's appearance leaned towards calmness, with a hint of handsomeness in his aura. Although he was handsome, Lin Wei gave people the impression that he was calm and experienced. The only flaw was the long scar on Shuaiying's neck. But the deeper the scar, the more it showed his masculinity. Although it looked terrifying, it didn't affect Shuaiying's handsomeness at all. At this moment, Shuaiying was half sitting on the table. One of his slender legs was leaning against the table while the other was resting on the ground. No matter how one looked at him, one could see how handsome he was. Although Lin Wei looked like an old Daoist, his appearance was young. His face was enough to charm a group of young girls. At this moment, Shuaiying shook his legs and looked sideways at Lin Wei. He suddenly teased, "Lin Wei, when are you going to find a woman to carry on your family line?" If it was in the past, Shuaiying wouldn't have dared to call Lin Wei an old bachelor. Although Shuaiying was the most handsome of the four great commanders, in terms of strength, Lin Wei was the strongest of the four great commanders. Shuaiying dared to say this today because Mo Sen had returned to the Inhun organization. Mo Sen and Lin Wei had a good relationship. If he said a few words to Lin Wei and Lin Wei got angry, he could still find Mo Sen to back him up. Lin Wei was a man of few words. Just as Shuaiying finished speaking, Lin Wei suddenly replied seriously, "Soon." Although these words were serious, Shuaiying rolled his eyes. Since when wasn't Lin Wei a man of few words? He still hoped to chat with him. Dream on. Cough, Adam's wife is already pregnant. You're already 25 years old. You can't fall behind. Shuaiying jumped down from the table and walked to Lin Wei. He patted Lin Wei's shoulder and said this. With that, he walked out of the office in a carefree manner. Along the way, he even greeted Mo Sen, who was walking to the office. Siyi's residence, in the bedroom. Chapter 1842. The moment Siyi picked her up and threw her onto the bed, Yunjian's cheeks were as red as a monkey's butt. She was certain that she had never blushed like this in her entire life. It was not just in this life. As slaying god and witch goddess 2 lifetimes ago, she had not blushed as much as she did today. Siyi tossed the towel far away and tossed Yunjian gently onto the soft bed. Siyi's eyes were glued to Yunjian. Even when he took off his jacket and shirt and unbuckled his belt, his gaze did not leave her. Siyi exposed his muscular chest and stared at Yunjian before making his way to Yunjian, who was placed on the bed. His pants were still on, but his eyes were fixed on Yunjian, never moving away from the deep gaze that met hers. Siyi, who could be sharp and ruthless to others without batting an eyelid, was now attracted to Yunjian. There was an unprecedented gentleness on his face. It was a gentle expression that might seem a little forced to an outsider. Seeing Yunjian with her arms crossed and a smirk on Siyi's face, his magnetic voice suddenly rang, making Yunjian's ears tingle and her body tremble. "Xiao Jian, move your hand away." It was undeniable that Siyi was getting more and more wretched. If the elderly saw him for the first time, they would only think that Siyi was decent and reliable. He was not lustful and made people feel that he was dependable. If Yunjian heard what the elderly said now, Yunjian would probably smash them to death with a brick. It would be a miracle. She half covered her chest with her hand to prevent herself from being exposed to Siyi. Siyi had been looking at her lustfully since just now and was even asking her to move her hand away. If anyone dared to say that Siyi was not lustful, she would fight them to the death. In spite of it, Yunjian was too embarrassed to move her hand away. Yunjian's blush was comparable to Chili's. Just as she spoke, her words were blocked by Siyi's lips. The man was really self-taught when it came to kissing. Perhaps it was due to his previous experience, Siyi caught her easily. Yunjian was numb from the kiss, unable to muster any energy. She didn't even know when the hand that was covering her chest had been moved away and replaced with a bigger palm. And Hun Group's lounge. Ever since the noisy snow eagle left, Ling Wei's ears finally quieted down. He lifted his slender legs and stood up from the sofa. Just as he was about to go to the killer training camp, he bumped into Emo Sr. "You're going to the training camp?" Lin. It was no wonder that the two of them had similar personalities. They even had a general understanding of where the other was going. Okay. Lin Wei nodded. Lin Wei was the one who spoke the most when talking to Emo Sr. Snow Eagle said that you're looking for a woman to carry on your family line. Emo Sen was not shy at all. I'm planning to. Lin Wei answered Emo Sen briefly as he followed him out. Who are you looking for? Emo Sen asked again. We'll talk about it later. Lin Wei did not have any requirements for his other half. He felt that it was enough for him to have a woman who could bear his children. As long as this woman was loyal to him and did not cheat on him, he would not find another woman in his life. It did not matter if there was no sex for love. If the future Snow Eagle heard Lin Wei's monologue, he would probably kick him and scold him. What happened to the sex for love? Go eat sh*t. There hasn't been any outstanding assassins in the training camp recently. Lin Wei had already arrived at the assassin training camp with Emo's senator. He stood not far away from the training camp and spoke briefly. I'll pay attention and send someone over as soon as there's one. Emo Sen said to Lin Wei as they walked. In Ce bedroom. Ce had already taken off all his clothes. The two were hugging each other. Chapter 1843. Xiao Jian, you're mine. You're mine. Ce's breath blew against Yun Jian's ear as he licked and kissed Yun Jian's ear. Yun Jian was numb from head to toe, unable to react for a long time. Just as Yun Jian was numb from embarrassment and Ce was about to enter the main topic, ding, 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 ding. The doorbell of Ce's residence rang. A certain someone kept pressing the doorbell of Ce's residence like his life depended on it. Seeing that no one was opening the door, the ringing grew louder and more frequent. Accompanied by the ringing of the doorbell was a certain someone's desperate shout, "Young master, I have something to ask of you." From the sound of the voice, it was obvious who had rung the doorbell. It was Shuang. Other than him, no one else dared to press the doorbell of Ce's residence. The ringing of the doorbell was like a basin of cold water, extinguishing the pleasant atmosphere just now. In spite of it, Yun Jian and Ce were burning with passion. Even a downpour would not be able to extinguish their flames. Ce growled and got up from the bed, picking up the towel on the floor and running his fingers through his black hair before heading for the door. Shuang, who was outside the door, pressed the doorbell twice in surprise. His young master used to come out quickly. Why did he? Just as he was thinking about it, the door opened. Shuang was about to say what he wanted to say when he saw Ce, who only had a towel around his lower body. Why was his young master dressed like this today? Shuang did not ask, of course, but just as he was about to speak, Ce growled at him with a dark expression. You! Get out in 3 seconds if you don't want to die. His young master had never spoken in such a furious tone, but he had said it today. In addition, Shuang knew that his young master would only lose control of his emotions in front of one person in his life and would only rage for that person. Shuang suddenly realized something. He was so scared that he quickly closed the door and ran away. Young master. I was wrong. I'll get out, I'll get out. Shuang ran like the wind, disappearing from the place in 3 seconds. Ce had the urge to strangle Shuang. Was it cold again today? Ce was so angry that he wanted to go back to his room to shoot Shuang. However, he scratched his black hair and went back to the room with a look of frustration. Yun Jian was no longer on the bed. Yun Jian had gone to the bathroom. Thinking about it, C was even more furious. If Shuang was here, he would choke him to death. It was then that Ce felt the room turn dark. The black curtains were suddenly closed by the remote control. His surroundings instantly turned pitch black, and no light could be seen from his 5 fingers. There was a sudden glint in Ce's eyes. Just as Ce did not know what was going on, a petite figure suddenly threw herself into his arms. Ce was only wearing a white towel. After the petite figure threw herself into his arms, Ce could clearly feel that she was naked. Suddenly, Ce felt someone bite his ear and Yunjian's voice rang out. "Happy birthday. I'll be by your side every birthday in the future." These words were not a passionate declaration of love. Many people might not know what love was, but this thing called love had already taken root and sprouted in their hearts. Yunjian's words touched Ce for a moment. Chapter 1844. If Yunjian was asked to name the one thing she did not regret the most after her rebirth, she would definitely say it without hesitation. The one thing she did not regret the most was being reborn and meeting him. There was no girl who did not care about her chastity. But she was willing to give her best to him and never regret it. This was Yunjian's wish as the sorcerer god. Whether it was her as the sorcerer god or Yunjian, she did not regret meeting him or becoming his woman. Because she knew that she was not the only one who loved him. In his heart, she was something far more precious than his own life. Even if he had to sacrifice countless of his own lives in exchange for hers, he was willing. As long as she was fine. This was the wish of a divine lord. And a divine lord's life goal was not for anyone else, but for her. When the two of them were joined, Yunjian did not feel any pain because her heart did not hurt. Her heart was sweet and blissful. Although the pain of her first time was hard for Yunjian to accept, she was willing to do it for him. The wind was gentle and the sun was bright. Under the bright sky, it was a romantic afternoon. From 12:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., Ce did not let go of Yunjian. He enjoyed her beautiful body over and over again without stopping. What an Hun organization, what Kosha mercenaries, what an Hun organization was busy with, everything was meaningless to Ce. Because in his heart, Yunjian was far more important than anything else. 8:30 p.m. After being tortured by Ce for the entire afternoon, Yunjian was paralyzed on the bed and could not move at all. She had thought that knife wounds and gunshot wounds were the most painful injuries, but why were these things so tiring and painful as well? If she had known it would be so painful from the start, she would have waited until she was an adult before doing it. Yunjian even wanted to kill someone now. Why didn't Shuang break it completely? It seemed like she had to kidnap Si Luo. Of course, these were just Yunjian's thoughts. She did not regret being able to become his woman. Ce and Yunjian were sleeping on the bed. He hugged Yunjian tightly and refused to let go. If it weren't for Yunjian begging him to let her go on the bed, he would probably be able to fight until the next morning. As soon as they were done, Ce walked into the bathroom and wiped Yunjian's body carefully with a basin of water. She even wiped the blood off Yunjian's face. Ce didn't even care about herself. She first wiped Yunjian's body carefully, then went into the bathroom to take a cold shower. She came over and hugged Yunjian, holding her in her arms and smelling her hair. That was great. His Xiao Jian was his now, rightfully so. If someone dared to plagiarize his Xiao Jian in the future and he spoke up again, it would be perfectly justifiable. Xiao Jian, does it hurt? Ce placed his hand on Yunjian's stomach, feeling a little regretful about his earlier rudeness. Yunjian turned away and ignored him. Ce panicked when he saw that. He propped himself up and turned to look at Yunjian. Xiao Jian, where does it hurt? Let me see. Don't look. Yunjian suddenly folded her legs and turned around to show him her back. She couldn't possibly spread her legs for him to see where it hurt. Ce had no idea what was wrong with him as he hugged Yunjian and rubbed and blew on her. It was obvious how much he cherished Yunjian. If the 4 leaders of an Hun group saw Ce's act of showing weakness, they would probably yell, "This isn't our young master." Yunjian did not know what was wrong with her. Since when did her voice become like this? Yunjian patted her cheeks lightly and shook her head in disbelief. Once she thought of what he did to her just now, Yunjian's cheeks were redder than a red pepper. They actually did it. Cough, cough. Ring, ring, ring. At this moment, a phone rang. As if to prevent awkwardness, Yunjian reached for her phone on the bedside table. Suddenly, a hand went around her shoulder and took the phone before she did, placing it in her hand and telling her, "Don't move if it hurts." "I'll do it." He would do everything. Ce looked a little like a pug trying to please its owner. Yunjian could not help smiling. She answered the call. It was Luo Mei, asking Yunjian to go out and play. Yunjian agreed. After she hung up, Ce's voice followed, "You're not allowed to go. You're still hurting." Wasn't she still hurting down there? I'm not hurting anymore. Yunjian suddenly felt shy. She pushed Ce away and quickly got up to put on her clothes. After Yunjian got up, Ce saw a red spot on the bed where Ce and her were having sex. Yunjian was halfway through putting on her clothes when she suddenly saw this. She walked over and wanted to pull off the sheets. Ce grabbed her hand. "What's wrong?" "I'm going to shower first." Yunjian blushed and did not dare to look at Ce. He even set the phone's ringtone to none before continuing to do the deed. Yunjian had actually arrived at an Hun organization on the 10th of November, which was yesterday. However, she had stayed at Luo Mei's place for a night, so Luo Mei knew that she was here. Mo Sen was very gentlemanly to Luo Mei. He had arranged for her to stay alone, unlike Shuang who forced Si Luo to stay in his room. Yunjian's eyes flickered when she heard Luo Mei's words. She immediately found a ridiculous excuse and said to Luo Mei, "I accidentally fell and couldn't move. That's why I didn't call you to explain." This was the most ridiculous lie that Yunjian had ever told. She didn't expect Luo Mei to believe her. "Ah. Are you in pain? Do you need me to come over and take a look? Have you seen a doctor?" "Wait for me, I'll be right there." Luo Mei panicked. She really thought that Yunjian was injured, so she quickly spoke up. "I'm fine now. It's just a minor injury." "You don't have to come over," Yunjian said to Luo Mei with a hoarse voice. "Are you really fine?" Luo Mei asked worriedly. Yunjian nodded. She wasn't really injured. If Luo Mei accompanied her to the hospital, the doctor would probably only say, "Young lady, don't overindulge in your desires at such a young age. Your voice is hoarse. Do you have a cold? You must have a good rest." Luo Berry added. At that, Yunjian glared at Ce who could not stop his hands from fondling her breasts, only to see the silent Ce flashing her an indulgent, handsome smile. Chapter 1846. Ce smirked, realizing that he was becoming more and more addicted to his Xiao Jian. Her entire body belonged to him. Every part of her body was in contact with his soul. Even her toes were not spared. Ce arched his handsome face and reached out to pull Yunjian into his embrace. His hands moved up and down, Yunjian patted Siyi's hand twice, but Siyi's eyes were fixed on her. In the end, she was too embarrassed to call Luo Mei while being touched by Siyi, so she found an excuse to end the call. Yunjian did not get out of bed for 3 days and 3 nights. Siyi was like a beast that was about to starve to death now that he had tasted meat. It was the first time Yunjian felt extreme soreness in her back. In spite of it, Yunjian was still Yunjian. Her stamina was incomparable to ordinary women. As they were heading to the hunting school on the 15th of November, Yunjian stayed with Siyi for a while longer. On the 14th of November, Yunjian returned to Longmen City with Siyi. Yunjian was going to the hunting school for a year, so she returned to Longmen City today to visit her younger brother, Xiao Yunju, and the rest. Knowing that Yunjian was going to the hunting school for a year, Siyi did not say a word about it. In spite of it, Yunjian knew that just like what her master had said, even if she did not bring him to the hunting school, he would go to the hunting school himself to look for her. The day before they went to the hunting school, Yunjian and Siyi went to Wanning-yi Elementary School where Xiao Yunju and Duanli studied. Wanning-yi Elementary School was beautifying the school recently. Not only were the students beautifying their classrooms, the school was also building a flat cement road. After Xiao Yunju and Duanli were done with their tasks, they strode with their short legs toward where Yunjian and Siyi were outside the school gate. Brother Siyi. Sister Yunjian. Xiao Yunju and Duanli rushed into the arms of Siyi and Yunjian respectively. Yunjian pinched Duanli's cheeks and grabbed her hand. Siyi grabbed Xiao Yunju's collar and dragged him to the kindergarten to pick up Duanya. Knowing that her daughter would be away for a year, Qin Yiro prepared a sumptuous dinner. Everyone sat around the table and enjoyed the sumptuous dinner. After that, Yunjian and Siyi returned home. Siyi used the excuse that Yunjian was going to be away for a year and pressed Yunjian down on the bed, the sofa, the door, the bathroom, after a round of suppression. Young men who had tasted meat were the fiercest. Yunjian truly understood the meaning of this sentence. Siyi kissed and touched her, vividly displaying the word immoral. The next morning, Siyi personally sent Yunjian to Min City Military Academy. When they arrived at the entrance, everyone looked over. Yunjian and Siyi were not only compatible in terms of looks, but they were also tall and well-proportioned. No matter where they went, they would be a very beautiful couple. Therefore, they attracted the attention of a large group of students around Min City Military Academy. Yunjian did not enter the school because she had already seen Yu Xiaoluo's car parked there. Siyi grabbed Yunjian's hand and led her forward in 2 or 3 steps by Siyi. Yunjian, you're here. Hurry up and get in the car. Get ready to go. Yu Xiaoluo waved at Yunjian when he saw Yunjian. There were a few military academy instructors standing beside Yu Xiaoluo. They were obviously there to send them off. Yunjian could see that Yu Xiaoluo's jeep was already filled with the 2nd and 3rd place Special Forces soldiers from the previous selection competition. After hearing Yu Xiaoluo's words, Yunjian nodded. However, before Yunjian could get into the car, Yu Xiaoluo suddenly saw that there were red patches on Yunjian's neck. He asked, Yunjian, what happened to your neck? Were you bitten by a mosquito? Why did the mosquito bite your neck in the shape of a mouth? Are you okay? It's not good if the mosquito is poisonous. Do you want to go to the hospital? Yu Xiaoluo glanced at Yunjian worriedly as he said this. Yunjian's face turned red when she heard this. Unexpectedly, just as Yu Xiaoluo finished speaking, Siyi suddenly grabbed Yunjian's hand and pulled Yunjian to his side. Then, he used a cold tone to declare his sovereignty over Yu Xiaoluo. Chapter 1847. Siyi was truly shameless. It was natural for him to be lewd in front of Yun Jian, but he always wore a cold and expressionless face when declaring his sovereignty in front of outsiders. Even Yu Xiaoluo blushed when he said that, but Ce did not look embarrassed at all. Yun Jian wished she could find a hole to crawl into. "Instructor, we can go now." "I'm fine." Yun Jian tugged at the corner of her lips, trying to change the topic. In spite of it, Ce's grip on her hand was tight as Ce spoke to Yu Xiaoluo shamelessly. Cough, cough, cough. Even Yu Xiaoluo's ears were red as he coughed a few times to express his awkwardness. He had seen the redness on Yun Jian's neck all of a sudden and was afraid that she was bitten by something or had an allergic reaction. He was worried that Yun Jian's ability would be affected if she was sent to the hunting school. Never had Yu Xiaoluo imagined that it was left behind after a young couple's love affair. If he had known, he would not have asked even if he was beaten to death. Get in. Yu Xiaoluo turned to look at Yun Jian and told Yun Jian, trying to cover up the awkward atmosphere just now. Yun Jian nodded and was about to ask Ce to let go of her hand when he suddenly spoke. Yu Xiaoluo, who was already on his way to the driver's seat, knocked his head against the door, causing a huge bump to form on his head from the pain. Ce was still holding on to Yu Xiaoluo's hand as he asked, "Xiao Jian, does it still hurt there?" He had just finished talking about the red strawberry and now he was bringing it up. Even a proper man like Yu Xiaoluo could not help letting his imagination run wild. "It doesn't hurt anymore. Let go." Yun Jian's rosy cheeks made Ce reluctant to let her go. It was just a hunting school. It was easy for him to see her. There would be plenty of time for him to take his time. He would make her pregnant with his child. That's right, Ce had been up to some tricks these days. When Ce slept with his Xiao Jian, he never used the condom and penetrated her directly every time. Yun Jian had probably forgotten about the existence of this thing long ago. Yun Jian might be powerful, but she knew nothing about this. As for Ce, he had already read up on such books. Naturally, he was better than Yun Jian, who hadn't done any research. Ce's ultimate goal was obvious. He wanted to stuff a tiny Ce in Xiao Jian's stomach. This is great. Yun Jian finally got into the jeep. Under Ce's watchful gaze, she left the place and parted with Ce for a short while. Ce watched Yun Jian's jeep disappear from his sight before he boarded the private helicopter that Immerse sent to fetch him back to an Hun group and left Longmen City. Nothing had changed. Some things, however, might have changed drastically when Yun Jian returned. Sitting in the jeep, Yun Jian tilted her head to look out of the window with squinted eyes. Cough. "I can see that he cares a lot about you, Yun Jian. If it were someone else, puppy love, I definitely wouldn't support it. But if it's you guys, I'll give you my blessings. Young couples like you two can be sweet for the rest of your lives. I'm so envious of you two youngsters." Yu Xiaoluo suddenly spoke to Yun Jian. There was a hint of emotion in his words, making Yun Jian nod slightly. In just a few minutes, they returned to the main topic. Yu Xiaoluo immediately told Yun Jian and the rest of the arrangements. She knocked on the counter and spoke to the foreign attendant in Dubai's local Arabic under her gaze. "I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Hunting school members from Z country, 3 of them. Please check in." It was not Yun Jian's first time staying at the 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei. She had been here a few times in her previous life, so she was not unfamiliar with the place. When the foreign waitress heard Yun Jian's words, she lowered her head at first. When she looked up at Yun Jian, she was shocked. The person who spoke was not from her country. This little kid was obviously a foreigner. How could he speak her country's language? She almost thought that this little kid was a citizen of her country when she heard his voice. And she was one of the Z country's special forces that was about to participate in the hunting school. You can speak Arabic. The special forces soldier who was with Yun Jian exclaimed after hearing Yun Jian's words. Chapter 1849. The special forces soldier who asked Yun Jian was named Yang Qin. He was born in an ordinary family. Later, he joined the army because of his good physique. He performed well in the army, and he was listed as a 2S wanted criminal with his comrades nearly 10 times. Later on, he even participated in a mission to capture a 3S level wanted criminal, and he barely succeeded. When he was 35 years old, he took part in a special forces training. Although it was not as cruel as the training in the hunting school, it was still very experienced. Yang Chen was 41 years old this year. His strength was equal to his age. He was not old, but he was already one of the best in the army. Seeing that Yun Jian could speak Arabic in Dubai at such a young age, Yang Chen was naturally surprised. The hunting school was located in the tropical jungle of Venezuela. The language spoken in the hunting school was Venezuelan Spanish. Therefore, before coming here, Yang Chen and the other special forces soldier Ding Jianlin had been sent to learn Spanish in depth. But they did not learn Arabic in Dubai. The world's only 6-star Empire Hotel was located in Dubai, while the hunting school was located in Venezuela. They were two different countries, and they spoke different languages. Yang Chen and Ding Jianlin did not expect to go to the 6-star Empire Hotel in Dubai before going to the hunting school, so they were not prepared at all. But they did not expect that Yun Jian could speak Arabic. But after being stunned for a short while, they reacted quickly. Yun Jian could win the first place in the preliminaries, and was valued by the leaders at such a young age. Her strength was definitely not bad, so it was not surprising that she could speak Arabic. Just when Yang Chen and Ding Jianlin were thinking about this, Yun Jian had taken their room cards from the front desk and handed them to Yang Chen and Ding Jianlin, room cards. Yang Chen and Ding Jianlin took their room cards, feeling a little scared. The hunting school was famous for its inhumane devil training, and the three of them represented Z country to participate in the training. Their ultimate goal was to win glory for their country. Before entering the hunting school, of course they were scared. What were they scared of? They were scared that they could not win glory for their country. But how come Yun Jian was not scared at all? On the contrary, after giving their room cards to Yang Chen and Ding Jianlin, Yun Jian waved to Yang Chen and Ding Jianlin, and turned to her main room. While walking, Yun Jian left them with a gorgeous back view, and waved her hand. I will go first, make yourself at home. Yun Jian knew the terrain here like the back of her hand. Chen Yang and Ding Jianlin were surprised that Yun Jian could find where they lived without asking anyone. The two of them gulped. Fortunately, the hotel had a language exchange service for people from different countries. After asking around, the two of them found their respective rooms. On the other hand, Yun Jian wandered lazily between the luxurious buildings with her room card in hand and finally came to her room. This was a hotel room with imperial treatment. Here, just the toilet alone was bigger than an ordinary hotel room. There was also a living room, kitchen, upper and lower floors, as well as an observation deck, a hot spring, a swimming pool, and so on. Yun Jian took a quick shower in the bathroom and went downstairs to the shooting range. Here, the shooting range was not only about bows and arrows. The most popular shooting in Dubai was shooting with real guns. When Yun Jian walked in, she saw many people holding real guns in front of various targets, learning shooting under the guidance of coaches. People who lived in the 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei were definitely rich. Like Yunjian, there were a total of 31 people who were going to the hunting school. Not all the people who lived in the 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei were members of the hunting school. There were a lot of rich people living here, and Yunjian and her group were just passing by. When Yunjian walked in, she saw many young people who loved guns from different countries were using guns under the guidance of coaches. Yunjian narrowed her eyes and walked lazily to a closed shooting room. The shooting room was the only room in the shooting range. It had been abandoned for more than a year, and no one had entered it to shoot. That was because this was the VIP room that Yunjian had reserved in her past life. Other than her, slaying god, no one else could enter. She would enter the room directly every time she came here. Just a second before Yunjian was about to enter the room, a coach hurried over from afar and stopped her, telling her, "You're not allowed to enter the room." Chapter 1850. The instructor hurriedly ran over to stop Yunjian. He did not explain why he did not allow Yunjian to enter the shooting range. All he said was that she could not enter the private room and asked Yunjian to follow him to another place to practice her shooting skills. Yunjian narrowed her eyes at the sight. She narrowed her eyes because she was satisfied with the instructor's method. Or rather, she was satisfied with the shooting range's method. Slaying God had disappeared for more than a year. The last time she came to the shooting range in Brunei's 6-star Empire Hotel was a year ago, and she had not been there for more than a year. Logically speaking, if the shooting range did not see her and someone needed a private room, they could blackmail the person by offering double the price. After all, there was no shortage of rich people here. Obviously, the shooting range was very honest. If she did not come, the only private room in the shooting range would be empty and no one would be allowed to enter. Yunjian narrowed her eyes and replied to the instructor, "Okay." She would go somewhere else to practice. She did not want to make things difficult for the instructor. The instructor smiled and asked Yunjian in a friendly tone, "You're from country Z, aren't you?" The instructor spoke fluent local Arabic, the same as his conversation with Yunjian earlier. "Yes." Yunjian walked in front. She nodded and gave a brief reply. "You speak Arabic so well. You sound like a Dubai native." The instructor could not help but exclaim. Yunjian did not reply to his exclamation. The instructor did not feel awkward and pointed to a spot for Yunjian. "Young lady, let's go over there. The people near the target are all from country Z. It'll be easier for you to communicate with them if you stand next to them. Moreover, there's only one target nearby. People who shoot in the shooting range would usually choose a gun. The pistols and rifles in this shooting range were all real guns. People who came from all over the country wanted to experience real guns. Therefore, the targets around them were already filled with people except for the one the instructor had mentioned." Yunjian nodded with narrowed eyes. Seeing that Yunjian was the same, the instructor brought Yunjian over. There were a few young men in their 20s standing next to the target. These men were dressed in branded clothes and looked very cool. There were also a few young girls in their 20s standing beside them. They were all dressed in famous brands, and even their hands and necks were full of luxurious luxury goods. They were all from Z country and had been playing with guns under the instruction of their coach. At this moment, one of the more handsome young men was holding a pistol with both hands and shooting targets under the instruction of the coach. The other young men and girls watched the young man play with the gun. "Li Wei, you can do it. Show us how you hit the bullseye with your first shot." The young men and women next to him were shouting at the handsome young man who was holding a pistol and aiming it at the target with trembling hands. Hearing this shout, Yunjian walked over. She could clearly see that the young man called Li Wei's hands were trembling. It was obvious that he wanted to stand out in front of a group of people, but he didn't have the confidence to hit the mark. The young man was called Shen Liwei. Bang! The shot was fired in the end. Shen Liwei's hand holding the pistol trembled. When a real gun fired a bullet, the sound of the gunshot was especially loud. The gun would also shake twice with the impulse of the shot. At this time, the person holding the gun had to hold the gun steady. Generally, people who played with guns would be shocked by the shot of the gun every time. This man called Shen Liwei was no exception. His body trembled slightly. When playing with a real gun, the scariest thing was to hurt oneself. People who weren't familiar with guns would tremble because of fear. Hit the bullseye. The instructor's voice sounded, making the man called Shen Liwei heave a big sigh of relief. A few young people praised him from the side. Wow! Although it's not the bullseye, it's his first time playing with a gun and he hit the bullseye. Our Liwei is indeed a gun expert. Just when Shen Liwei was enjoying the praise from the people around him, he and the people around him suddenly saw a petite and slender figure walking around the crowd. They saw Yun Jian standing on the target. She picked up the pistol on the table and loaded it without waiting for the instructor behind her to come over. She skillfully held the gun with one hand and fired 3 shots at the bullseye without even looking. The gunshot sounded again. 10. 10 bullseye. The instructor stood forward and opened his eyes wide. Under the shocked gaze of the group of young people, Yun Jian put down the gun and said to the instructor who followed her in horror. Chapter 1851. Generally, the effective range of a handgun was around 50 to 100 meters. Any further and it would not be accurate. Those who could pull out a gun and hit someone within 30 meters were sharpshooters. However, the maximum range of a handgun was far more than that. Of course, it was possible to use a handgun to shoot something beyond 100 meters. However, beyond 100 meters, it would be very difficult to shoot accurately. Therefore, the maximum range of a shooting gallery like this was usually around 50 to 100 meters. Any further and there would not be a place for people to continue shooting. After all, this was not a special forces training base. It was a place for tourists to experience shooting. However, normal tourists would have a certain degree of difficulty even if they were to shoot at a 20-meter target. Therefore, most of the targets around here were only 20 meters. After hearing Yun Jian's words and seeing Yun Jian's amazing shooting skills just now, 3 bullets were fired consecutively and all of them hit the bullseye. That was not all. She even said that she wanted the target to be adjusted to the furthest shooting range. Because the maximum range of a gun was not just 100 meters. However, in a shooting gallery, the maximum range that could be adjusted was only 100 meters. 100 meters. Could she do it? Just now, Yun Jian was speaking in Chinese. Therefore, the young people beside her who had just shot a bullseye as if they had won the world championship could understand what Yun Jian was saying. The coach also spoke Chinese. Naturally, he could understand. Therefore, when they heard Yun Jian's words, the young men and women, including the coaches around them, were all shocked. You! Young lady, you! Are you sure? You really want to adjust the target to the maximum range? 100 meters. The coach was in disbelief. Hitting 3 bullseye within 20 meters. Yun Jian's result had already made everyone present exclaim. She was indeed amazing. The coach behind Yun Jian initially thought that Yun Jian did not know how to use a gun. However, the feeling of shooting a target with a 20-meter range was different from shooting a target with a 100-meter range. This was a difference of 80 meters. There was a difference of 80 meters between them. What kind of concept was that? For example, a sharpshooter who could pull out a gun and shoot a person within 30 meters was a sharpshooter. However, if a sharpshooter who could pull out a gun and shoot a person within 30 meters was able to shoot a person 100 meters away, it was a completely different concept. Even the coaches in the shooting gallery did not have many who could hit the bullseye within 100 meters. At a distance of 100 meters, even hitting the target was a problem. Of course, I'm sure, Yunjian glanced at the coach and said in front of the dumbfounded young people. A target 100 meters away was still too close for her. However, the furthest range here was only a few meters. After all, even though this shooting gallery was large, it was still within the gallery. There was no shooting range as far as the eye could see. This was the reason why Yunjian wanted to enter the gallery. The furthest shooting range of her box was 200 meters. Okay. I'll go move it. After hearing Yunjian's words, the coach took a deep breath. Just as he was about to order someone to move the bullseye, Yunjian interrupted him. There's no need, Yunjian said abruptly. Hearing this, the young men and women standing nearby all breathed a sigh of relief for some reason. Even though Yunjian had amazed them, after hearing Yunjian's words, they still thought to themselves. Indeed, hitting the bullseye within 20 meters with 3 bullseye was already the limit. This young lady said that she wanted to shoot the bullseye within 100 meters. Was she trying to be brave? Just as these young men and women were thinking this, Yunjian's words rang out again. Yunjian's words immediately made the young men and women widen their eyes. The coach was even more shocked. When Yunjian saw a girl at the entrance of the shooting gallery, she narrowed her eyes and said, "You're right." Chapter 1852. Yunjian wasn't bragging, but shooting from 20 meters and 100 meters with a pistol wasn't shooting at all. To her, it was like a child playing house. It wasn't challenging at all. To put it bluntly, to Yunjian, there was no difference between playing and not playing at all. The effective range of a pistol wasn't far. An ordinary pistol's effective range might only be 50 to 100 meters, but some pistols had a longer range, such as the assault pistol. Of course, the specific range depended on how the person operating the pistol handled their weapon. Yunjian didn't come to the shooting range to play with pistols. When Yunjian saw the woman who came in, she waved at the coach and made her way to her. This woman was the person in charge of the shooting range. She was also the god of marksmanship who broke the record for the world's longest sniper rifle. The woman's name was Luo Shi. Seeing Yunjian walking toward Luo Shi, the coach's heart almost jumped to his head. Luo Shi was the person in charge of their shooting range. Most importantly, Luo Shi was ruthless. If an ordinary person dared to provoke her, Luo Shi's lightest punishment would be to break one of their legs. Note that this was the lightest punishment. Little girl. You. When the coach reacted and wanted to call Yunjian back, Yunjian was already in front of Luo Shi. The coach didn't dare to go forward. He covered his face and exclaimed, "Oh my God," in their Dubai Arabic. Then. Who is that woman? Shen Liwei and the others who were standing beside Yunjian just now were suspicious when they saw Yunjian walking toward the woman. They asked their coaches about it when they saw how frightened their coaches were. As soon as the question was asked, Shen Liwei and the others' coaches' face instantly changed. Then, under their questioning, he softly said to them. "She's the person in charge of our shooting range, Luo Shi. She's also the terrifying woman who broke the record for the world's longest sniper rifle. She's known as the god of marksmanship. She's internationally famous. Luo Shi is ruthless. In the past, a coach in our shooting range accidentally provoked her and was shot dead by her on the spot. The people who hung out with Luo Shi were all internationally famous people." The coach's words went without saying. What he meant was that the people who played with Luo Shi were all demons who killed without batting an eyelid. There was no doubt that they were the international leaders of the underworld, the military families, and so on. Therefore, even if Luo Shi killed someone, she wasn't afraid. Because he had a backer. Hearing the coach's words, the young men and women led by Shen Liwei all took a deep breath. Shen Liwei and the others were all young masters and daughters of rich families. Coming out to play this time was purely entertainment for rich people like them. With money, they could go wherever they wanted and play in whichever country they wanted. No one could stop them. However, they were all children of legitimate merchants. Although they were rich, they had never heard of such a dark matter. Thus, at this moment, they were all a little flustered. At this moment, Yun Jian walked over to Luo Shi. She didn't treat Luo Shi with respect like the coach at all. On the contrary, Yun Jian walked directly behind Luo Shi. Before Luo Shi could react, she walked behind Luo Shi and knocked her on the head with a chestnut. This action, the coaches in the distance, including Shen Liwei and the others, were all shocked. Someone was about to be shot to death for provoking Luo Shi verbally, yet Yun Jian dared to go over and hit the girl's head with a chestnut. Did she want to die? Everyone was scared half to death. However, they saw that Yun Jian had said something. After Luo Shi reacted, not only did she not shoot Yun Jian in anger, Luo Shi instead widened her eyes and looked at Yun Jian. Chapter 1853. Luo Shi turned around under everyone's gaze. Then, just as everyone thought that Luo Shi had been knocked on the head by Yun Jian and was about to fly into a rage, Luo Shi suddenly turned around and gave Yun Jian a bashful smile. The instructors, Shen Liwei, and the others in the distance were shocked again. Especially Shen Liwei and the others. Wasn't Luo Shi, who was known as the god of guns, a terrifying woman? She had even shot a coach to death because he had annoyed her. Then shouldn't Luo Shi be an extremely terrifying existence? Just now, Yun Jian had given Luo Shi a chestnut with her hand when she walked over, rapping the girl's head hard. Even if a normal person was standing there, if someone suddenly walked behind them and hit them hard on the head, they would feel uncomfortable. Not to mention a terrifying woman like Luo Shi. If the coach were to do what Yun Jian had just done, he would probably be so dead that not even his bones could be found. But after Yun Jian knocked on Luo Shi's head, she said something, and Luo Shi actually turned around and smiled shyly at Yun Jian. This action made Shen Liwei and the other instructors, who were standing in place, open their mouths. Even some of the instructors, who didn't know what was going on, opened their mouths wide when they saw this scene. Perhaps tourists like Shen Liwei didn't know how terrifying Luo Shi was, but how could the instructors not know? How terrifying was Luo Shi? The instructors didn't know how to describe this woman's terror with words. However, just when the crowd thought that this was already the most shocking scene they had seen, in the next breath, an even more shocking turn of events occurred. After Luo Shi saw Yun Jian, she smiled shyly. Not only did her unchanging cold face turn into a smile, but she also opened her arms and was about to hug Yun Jian. Luo Shi was already in her 30s, but she looked like she was only in her 20s. Her skin was well maintained, and if she dressed up, no one would doubt that she was in her teens. Similarly, Luo Shi always had a straight face in front of everyone. She never smiled or joked with others. But today, Luo Shi's actions not only overturned everyone's understanding of her, but also made all the coaches go crazy. She actually reached out to Yun Jian and hugged her. Not far away, a coach raised his glasses, craned his neck, and said in an English pronunciation that everyone present could understand, somewhat incredulously. "Oh my God, this can't be real, right?" Luo Shi's strength was outstanding, which was a stark contrast to her cold personality. She didn't like to get close to people. She didn't like to get close to people. She never hugged anyone and only focused on shooting. For someone like her, she had dedicated her entire life to learning how to shoot. That was why she was able to break the record for the longest shooting range of a sniper rifle. She was also known as the God of Shooting. This was probably the reason why Luo Shi was still single. As long as a person abandoned everything to learn something because he or she liked it, as long as this person wasn't stupid, most people would achieve more or less. In everyone's eyes, Luo Shi was such a cold and isolated person. But today, she actually took the initiative to hug a girl. Just when everyone thought that Yun Jian and Luo Shi were going to hug each other, Yun Jian's expression changed. What happened next was even more shocking. Most people would be overjoyed if a woman like Luo Shi, who had such high achievements and terrifying strength, took the initiative to hug anyone. But when Luo Shi was about to hug her, Yun Jian reached out and stopped Luo Shi from pouncing on her. She gave Luo Shi a smile in front of everyone and said something that everyone thought was suicidal. Chapter 1854. Throw. This little girl actually dared to say that she would throw Luo Shi into the manure pit again. Again. It was obvious that Yun Jian and Luo Shi were old acquaintances. Could it be that Luo Shi had been thrown into the manure pit by Yun Jian before? Luo Shi, the person in charge of the shooting range of the 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei, who once broke the world record for the longest range of a sniper rifle, and who was followed by a group of people who were not international leaders, world leaders, or business politicians. She was actually thrown into the manure pit by a little girl, At this moment, not only were the instructors in the distance staring in disbelief, but even Shen Liwei and the group of young people standing next to them, as well as the foreigners around them who could understand Yun Jian's words, were all stunned on the spot. Obviously, Luo Shi's identity was not ordinary. At least many people present knew her. They thought that Luo Shi would be furious after hearing Yun Jian's words, but what did the crowd see in the next second? They saw that after Yun Jian finished speaking, Luo Shi obediently withdrew her hand that was about to hug Yun Jian. Luo Shi was also trembling because of Yun Jian's words, as if she had recalled a terrifying memory. Luo Shi had indeed been thrown into the manure pit by Yun Jian before. The reason was that when the two first met, Luo Shi did not agree with Yun Jian. Later, Yun Jian directly threw her into the manure pit. After being fished out of the manure pit, Luo Shi also thought of taking revenge on Yun Jian. As she took revenge, she did not know when Luo Shi and Yun Jian started to walk together. And it was the type that would prostrate themselves in front of her. After hearing Yun Jian's words, Luo Shi scratched her head and then laughed awkwardly. How long ago was that? Why bring it up? Her face. Her face. She still did not give her any face as usual. Let's go. Let's go snipe 2 more times. If you lose, you'll have to treat us. Luo Shi said as she led Yun Jian away. This kind of carefree attitude was something that no one present had ever seen before. These coaches had never seen Luo Shi be so polite to anyone, so they all opened their mouths. Shen Liwei, who had just fired a shot and hit the 9th ring, was bragged about by his friend as if he had become a world champion. He smiled awkwardly. Then Shen Liwei and his friend heard the coach standing next to them mutter to himself and sigh. The person in charge of our shooting range, Luo Shi, has never been so polite to anyone before. Who exactly is that little girl? It was already evening when they returned from Luo Shi's private outdoor shooting range. After 30 rounds of sniper rifle shooting, Luo Shi's score was 0-30 compared to Yun Jian's. Luo Shi had been thrown into a cesspool by Yun Jian and had lost all her face. The reason why she had become friends with Yun Jian was because of Yun Jian's amazing marksmanship. She, Luo Shi, was someone who had once broken a world record. In the hands of Yun Jian, it was like an elephant playing with a turtle. There was no comparison at all. It was also because Luo Shi respected the strong that she had turned hostility into friendship and turned her enemy into a friend. The restaurant of the 6-star Empire Hotel in Brunei was dazzling and very luxurious. Usually, when it was time to eat, there would be a professional international chef cooking here. As long as they stayed in the hotel, they could eat and drink for free for a day. Yun Jian stepped into the restaurant alone. After receiving the notice, the people from the hunting school would stay in the restaurant after dinner for people from different countries to get to know each other. Before dinner, they would eat separately. So Yun Jian came for dinner. Not long after she stepped into the endless restaurant building, a surprised voice came from behind. "It's you." Yun Jian turned her head and saw a group of 6 or 7 young men and girls led by Shen Liwei walking over. The one who spoke was Shen Liwei. The moment Shen Liwei saw Yun Jian, he was ecstatic. He strode forward and stood in front of Yun Jian as if they were familiar with each other. He stretched out his hand to Yun Jian. Chapter 1855. Shen Liwei was the child of a rich family, which meant that he was a young master. He usually liked to show off in front of the girls. The young masters of rich families usually placed a lot of importance on their own face. For rich people like them, face was the most important thing. And Yun Jian's strength made Shen Liwei and the others worship her. The reason why Shen Liwei ran over to stop Yun Jian was because of Yun Jian's amazing strength. No one wanted to make friends with the weak and join forces with the strong. As long as someone was at a higher level, they would rarely take the initiative to make friends with people who were much lower than them. But if they met someone who was at a higher level than them, they would be like Shen Liwei towards Yun Jian. They would be submissive, afraid that they would say something that would make the other party unhappy. At this moment, Shen Liwei was confident that Yun Jian would be willing to get to know him. However, Yun Jian, who was standing in front of Shen Liwei, only glanced at him slightly. Seeing Yun Jian glance at him, Shen Liwei realized that Yun Jian didn't seem to like shaking hands with people. So Shen Liwei quickly withdrew his hand and looked at Yun Jian with a smile. In front of his friends and girls, he said to Yun Jian, "My name is Shen Liwei, I'm from Z country, we're from the same country. This. And they're my friends." As Shen Liwei spoke, he began to stutter. Later on, he was stared at by Yun Jian for a long time, and his face actually turned red. It wasn't because Shen Liwei had a good impression of Yun Jian that he blushed. It was because Yun Jian's strength just now made Shen Liwei have the impulse to treat Yun Jian as his idol. In front of his idol, Shen Liwei began to stutter. Although Shen Liwei usually liked to show off in front of his friends, this was all forced out. Especially for someone like Shen Liwei, who was the richest in front of his friends, he had to learn some powerful skills to show off. When Shen Liwei was holding a real gun and shooting, he was actually panicking and didn't know how to move. But the friends around him were all shouting for him to hit the 10 points, which made Shen Liwei even more flustered. When he hit the 9th ring, Li Weishan heaved a sigh of relief, and then felt a little smug. This was a normal reaction for young people. For example, in school, if you were to get first place in an exam, you would probably have to look at your classmates with your nose in the air. When he saw Yun Jian just now, Shen Liwei felt as if he had seen his idol. He saw what he wanted to be like. Therefore, when he saw Yun Jian in the restaurant, Shen Liwei ran over without thinking and called out to Yun Jian. Yun Jian raised her eyes slightly to glance at Shen Liwei, then moved her feet. Just as she was about to walk towards the dining hall, a young girl in her early 20s standing beside Shen Liwei shouted at Yun Jian. "You're amazing. So can you teach us how to shoot? We will be grateful to you. If you don't want to, you can name a price. We can afford it." I'm Meng Tian Tian. Shen Liwei wasn't the only one who thought so. The few people standing beside him also thought so. Yun Jian was so powerful. If they could get Yun Jian to teach them her skills, wouldn't they become super powerful people when they returned? Shen Liwei and Meng Tian Tian trembled with excitement just thinking about this. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Before Yun Jian could say anything, a burst of laughter sounded again. After the laughter fell, the owner of the laughter appeared. You bunch of brats still want to be her disciple? Don't even think about it. She has never accepted a disciple before. The owner of the laughter was Luo Shi. Luo Shi strolled over from not far away and happened to hear the conversation between Shen Liwei and Meng Tian Tian, so she couldn't help but speak up. Seeing that it was Luo Shi, Shen Liwei, Meng Tian Tian, and the others were slightly stunned and took 2 steps back. Seeing this, Luo Shi didn't feel that there was anything wrong. She glanced at Yun Jian, who had her hands in her pockets lazily, and continued to speak to Shen Liwei and Meng Tian Tian. Not to mention you guys, even I was rejected when I wanted to be her disciple. Speaking up to this point, Luo Shi first clutched her chest and showed a sad expression. After a while, Luo Shi turned her head to look at Meng Tian Tian and said to her, "Little girl, no matter how rich your family is, it's impossible to be her disciple. Do you know how many people begged to be her disciple? Not to mention the international big shots fighting to be her disciple." Chapter 1856. As soon as Luo Shi said that, Meng Tian Tian, the girl who had asked Yun Jian to name a price to learn Yun Jian's skills, was dumbfounded. You're saying, someone converted $5 billion into cash and hired nearly 100 trucks to load the cash onto them and send it to her to be her disciple? Luo Shi's words made Shen Liwei's jaw drop. Disbelief was written all over his face, but Shen Liwei still blurted out the seemingly impossible words with a shudder. Meng Tian Tian was stunned as well. She had just asked Yun Jian to name a price. Her family did not have that much money. That's right. The scene back then was sensational. I've never seen such a sensational scene in my life. The money was like a drizzle falling from the sky. As long as she agreed, it was all hers. In the end, the person loaded the money onto nearly 100 trucks and sent it to her personally, scaring the neighbors. All she had to do was say, "How little, how embarrassing." Throw it out, and all the money was sent back. Luo Shi clicked her tongue as she recalled hearing Yun Jian reject someone who had offered $5 billion to be her disciple. These words caused Shen Li and Meng Tian Tian to be stunned. The expressions on their faces changed from their mouths to their mouths wide open, then closing them again. They were so shocked that their eyes were wide open, like fish spitting bubbles in the water. That's why, if she takes anyone as her disciple in this lifetime, I'll immediately acknowledge that disciple as my master. I'll treat her like an ancestor and serve her. I'll have no complaints. If you spout nonsense, I, Luo Shi, will be struck by lightning and die a horrible death. Luo Shi was certain that Yun Jian would never take in a disciple in this lifetime. There were so many good seedlings in the world, but Yun Jian did not even spare them a glance. She did not even bat an eye when someone sent nearly 100 trucks worth of cash to Yun Jian. She would take in a disciple? T. Even if the sky fell, it would not be possible. Country Z, Je Province's Longmen City welcomes you. Since Luo Shi had boasted so much, Yun Jian would feel embarrassed if she didn't say anything. Just as Luo Shi was talking with relish, Yun Jian's voice came faintly, which made Luo Shi suddenly stunned. What do you mean by that? Luo Shi suddenly had a bad feeling. This kind of premonition was called not being able to keep the words that came out of one's mouth. One had to pay the price for one's words. My disciple, Zhang Xiaofeng, from the province's Longmen City, a student of Longmen City No. 1 High School. He's also the ancestor you're supposed to serve. Yun Jian's words suddenly rang out. Her tone was flat, but it stirred up the emotions of Luo Shi and everyone present. Yun Jian had already accepted a disciple? Although Xunli Wei and Meng Tian were surprised, they were not as shocked as Luo Shi, who had just made some kind of oath. Luo Shi knew that it was even more inconceivable for Yun Jian to accept a disciple than for a person to eat sh*t for food. But this Yun Jian, she actually. Did he take in a disciple? Are you kidding me? You've really accepted a disciple? Luo Shi turned her gaze to Yun Jian in disbelief. Yun Jian nodded and smirked, turning to Luo Shi and joking, your ancestor is in country Zisha province's Longmen City. Don't forget. With that, Yun Jian stepped into the restaurant. Her long legs and the view of her back with the golden ratio made the people who stood where they were gasp. This doesn't make sense. This. Luo Shi shook her head and ran into the restaurant with Yun Jian in disbelief. Xunli Wei, Meng Tian, and the rest who were left behind gulped and followed them into the restaurant. Inside the restaurant. The restaurant was a buffet, so one could take as much as one wanted. Yun Jian took 7 to 8 plates of dishes and placed them in front of her. She sat down leisurely and tasted them slowly. You're eating so much. Luo Shi took a few dishes and sat opposite Yun Jian. Looking at the plates in front of Yun Jian and the ones in front of her, she could not help grumbling, you're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.